Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NXTGEN Racing European GT3 Series for 2021. And tonight, all roads have led to this. It's round 8, it's the season finale, and we have got a phenomenal race ahead of us. Our schedule for tonight, much like the previous schedules, will be getting underway with the driver's briefing at 7:25 this evening, the times being in British Summer Time or BST or UTC +1, the driver's briefing lasting 5 minutes, then we'll get underway with the 15-minute qualifying session, but then after that, here's the difference. Tonight we have a 2-hour or 120-minute race which starts at 7:45 and will conclude at approximately 10 to 10, and that way we'll be getting underway with our post-race podium interviews straight after. So we have got a schedule full of racing entertainment tonight, and it will be brought to you by your commentary team, which consists of myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and you can watch this broadcast tonight via 3 different media channels. Firstly, through the NXTGEN Racing official YouTube channel, so that's on YouTube and NXTGEN Racing, alternatively the official NXTGEN Racing Facebook group, or last but not least, you can also watch it on my personal Twitch channel, that's TX141 at Twitch. Now, it wouldn't be possible to bring this series, indeed all of the rounds of this series, it would not have been possible to bring these rounds to you without the brilliant collaboration and partnership that NXTGEN Racing has with both the SimGrid and Coach Dave Academy as the primary partners of this series. So let's introduce them once again. Starting off with the SimGrid then. The SimGrid is a place for amateur and professional sim racers to compete against fellow drivers in leagues and endurance events for Assetto Corsa Competizione. Of course, our platform for the racing tonight being Assetto Corsa Competizione on the PC. And if you want to know more about the SimGrid and the events they help run, and also the daily races they help run on Assetto Corsa Competizione on the PC, be sure to check them out at thesimgrid.com. We've also got to talk about our second primary partner, and that is Coach Dave Academy. Coach Dave Academy is the home of amateur and professional sim racers looking to up their game through coaching, setups and track maps. If you're looking to gain a second, or even if it's just a tenth of a second, or find a more comfortable means of setting up the car and getting it raring and ready to go for racing, you want to check out Coach Dave Academy. Be sure to Google search Coach Dave Academy if you want your primary source of Assetto Corsa Competizione car setup and track information material. It's the place to go to. Now, over the course of 7 rounds, we have had a huge story to tell. Here are the championship standings after 7 rounds. Here's the top 10. And as we can see at the top right now is one Yves from Switzerland, our championship leader and effectively our championship winner as of his win at the Nürburgring last time out in round 7. A very wet and troublesome race for many drivers, but not for Field, who in the end was able to pull off another win, making it 3 back-to-back wins, and over the course of 7 races, a grand total of 5 out of 7 wins in the Porsche 911 GT3R. A phenomenal performance, and subject to no major penalties or disqualification from the series being picked up tonight, we will be confirming Yves as our championship winner when he crosses the finish line. However, the pursuit is still on for the top 3. Indeed, the whole top 10 is open to debate right now as to who is going to finish where, minus our championship winner. Mathis, as you can see there, in P2 on 384 points right now, is the favourite to come home in second place in the championship. But as we know, Mathis has had a difficult last couple of races where he's been looking to pick up the win, but it hasn't quite been there. And last time out in the Nürburgring, it was a 4th place in the wet when he was targeting the podium. Can we expect a return to the podium for the Frenchman, or will it be a bridge too far for him tonight? We'll have to wait and see. And then you've got Brett Krugkamp as well, only a further 10 points down in P3. Brett perhaps being one of the most consistent drivers in terms of his performances throughout the season. As you can see there, 7 races, that's 6 P9s. 6 9th places back to back, split only by a 4th place at Snetterton. A phenomenal P4 performance at Snetterton, and he'll be looking to try and end with a podium or as high as possible tonight. He's always been in the top 10. Can Krugkamp make it 8 out of 8 races in the top 10? But then again, we've also got the likes of Ben Walker and Marvin Lefloic in P4 and P5 respectively. Only a further 10 points off of Ben Walker from Brett Krugkamp and also Mathis. And you can see there, again, the performances have been strong. What with the fact last time out, Ben Walker picked up a podium at the Nürburgring, a brilliant drive in the McLaren 720S GT3, and being rewarded after so many opportunities to get onto the podium, and he finally managed to do it at the wet Nürburgring. And Marvin Lefloic as well. Another strong contender, what, on 348 points right now, a little bit further off our top 4, but still looking to try and finish in that top 5, if not spring a surprise result. And whilst we won't be seeing Ross Bartle take to the circuit tonight, unfortunately, in P6 in the Bentley Continental due to a conflict with a personal schedule, we can say that Ross Bartle has had a phenomenal season, and whilst we're going to miss him tonight, we do hope that perhaps he'll be able to hold on to that top 10 spot. Or will it be the opportunity for the likes of Chris Zoiger, Romain Delcomen, and Jonathan Atkinson and Kevin Harrikonen to be able to usurp him and get ahead of him with one race remaining? And we can see there how tight it is between them, and the one driver who would love to bounce back after what was a disastrous Nürburgring race, finishing in 23rd in the end after so much promise in the practice and the qualifying session. Kevin Harrikonen in P10 right now, 304 points, is looking for all the possible points tonight, and it is literally do or die. He is going to throw the car at the circuit and give it his best. That's what I've heard down in the paddock. But there's even more. As we hop a bit further down the order from 11th to 20th right now, you can see that in P11, the one driver who's had no luck across the season, and you could argue the one driver who should be right in the middle of that top 10, if not up in the top 5, Ethan Faulkner, the P11 driver there in the Ferrari 488. Last time out, having a compromised pit stop, having to do 2 pit stops, and still was going to bring the car home in what looked to be a P3, but it didn't work out, and he received a huge time penalty for it, and we can't quite work out why, what happened. But Faulkner, as a result, coming home in P15 at the Nürburgring when it was looking so good for a top 3. And that's really been the story of Faulkner's season, where the results just have not gone his way, and there's been so many difficulties. And can he potentially tonight finally finish on the podium after what has been a challenging season? You've also got the likes of Adrian Loisinger there in P14 in the BMW M6, who's crept the results forward. He's managed to achieve consistency in the BMW M6 despite it not being perhaps the ideal car for most of the circuits we've raced at. But he's there in P14 with a P11 last time out, only 1 place off her top 10 finish. Can he get a top 10 tonight? That'll be the big question. And then you've got Tony Hill down in P19 creeping up the points as well, 203 points to his name. Can he get even further up into the top 20 come the end of tonight? But then we even look further down the order from 21st to 30th, and we've still got some names to talk about. For example, Gareth Mills in P23. Those results coming in time after time, consistently finishing just outside of the top 20. Can he break into the top 20 tonight, or will it be too far for him to go? We'll have to wait and see. And we've also got there Wilcox in P27 in the Porsche 911. Can he have a strong performance tonight after finishing in P14 at Nürburgring? Can he get another top 20 finish? And as we head down to 31st through to 40th, we now come on to the majority of the drivers who've retired from the series and are no longer competing. But we still have a couple of names there who we're looking forward to potentially seeing out on the circuit tonight, such as Preston Lambrecht there in P36. Is he able to make a return tonight and perhaps end on a high after what has been a very challenging season for the Mercedes AMG driver? And then last but not least in our standings, 41st through to 51st, we throw back to the drivers who retired midway through the series. We started off with 51 drivers, but unfortunately we've had to say goodbye to a good number of them due to personal circumstances or schedule clashes, but still we wish them well. And I hope you're all doing well as you're tuning in tonight, and I hope you're having a great start to your week, whether it be Tuesday evening, and we've still got plenty more days to go. And also we see that in the chat in Twitch, MS2 Fast for You MS. Just a quick hello, and that's good to catch you, MS. And also NXTGEN Ultra, looking forward to some great racing tonight on the YouTube channel. And be sure to say hi if you are tuning in tonight. Do not be shy. Be sure to let me know who you're cheering on and who you are hoping to do well here. But before we come down to the circuit and our racing tonight, we must take a moment to introduce the fact that the sign-ups for Season 2 of the NXTGEN Racing European GT3 Series are open. We have had popular demand for this season, and we are going to be rolling forward to a Season 2 as of Tuesday the 31st of August 2021. So we will be back after tonight. It's not the end of this series. We've got plenty more racing ahead to whet your appetite after tonight. With Season 2 featuring a grid of 30 GT3 class cars and also 20 GT4 class cars. We're going to be involving 2 classes in the next season to mix things up. Those numbers may change depending on the amount of interest we get within the respective classes, but still we can expect to have 2 classes out on the circuit, and some brilliant racing, and mixed class racing can really appease to some drivers, and I'm one of those people who loves to see a multi-class race in action all on a single circuit. The season will consist of a pre-season qualification session, which is on that 31st of August 2021, and then a week later we get underway with 8 rounds of racing, which will happen back-to-back on Tuesdays. And the race day timetable will be the same as Season 1, and if you want to know more, be sure to check out that official link there at the bottom of your picture. That's the simgrid.com/championships/477/races, and you'll be able to find out more about the series, the rules, and how you can sign up if you're interested in racing. Again, we'll be bringing it to you in partnership with the SimGrid and also Coach Dave Academy. But you're probably wondering at this point, okay, well it sounds good, but what about the tracks? Will it be the same tracks as what we've seen in Season 1? Well no, there's only one track that's been refeatured on the race calendar. 2 arguably if you include pre-season qualifying. It'll be pre-season qualifying at Imola on the 31st of August 2021, and then we go to the likes of the legendary British circuit of Donington Park for round 1. We go to Zolder for round 2, Brands Hatch for round 3, Monza for round 4, Silverstone for round 5, Alton Park for round 6, a place which is known to create fantastic racing regardless of the class racing around there. Circuit the Paul Ricard at round number 7, and then last but not least we head back to the Nürburgring circuit for the finale. And again, that finale will be a 2-hour race, whereas all the others will be 75 minutes races, so be sure to check it out. And if you are interested, it doesn't matter whether you're a pro or whether you're a rookie or an amateur, be sure to sign up, because at the end of the day we're expecting plenty of racing action and all are welcome, so long as you're able to compete on Assetto Corsa Competizione on the PC and you have an interest in racing. Why not sign up today? But looking back now to the present, to the finale tonight, let's come back to the circuit. We are here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps for the finale. In the Stavelot region of Belgium, consisting of 20 corners, it is a circuit which many of you will know, and those of you who are GT World Challenge fans will know recently what the 24 hours of Spa, you saw a fantastic load of racing in that fantastic climatic battle between the Ferrari GT3 and the Audi R8 GT3 until the very end of the race. It was 2 for now, and I won't say who won because I don't want to spoil it for those of you perhaps still trying to catch up on it when it happened a couple of weeks ago. But we are here with legendary corners such as La Source at turn 1, Uruge and Radion from turns 3 to 5, we've got Lecon from turns 7 to 9. We've also got the likes of Stavelot 1 and Stavelot 2 from 15 and 16. But hold on a second, we've jumped over turn 12. That's Pouon Corner. And we've also got Blanchimont, the run from 17 to 18 before the bus stop chicane right at the end there. And thank you to Wikipedia for providing us with this image in preparation for tonight. Now, as for our rules, we go racing with the same rule as we always have, which is there is a mandatory pit stop which will require a tyre change and fuel being put on board the car, at least 1 litre of fuel, and this is inside a 10-minute pit window. Now this pit window of course will be in the middle of the race. We're running according to the standard rule set of Blancpain. It will be in the middle of the race, so that means that after 55 minutes the pit window will open, and after an hour and 5 minutes the pit window will close, which means our drivers will have to go the distance on each stint and protect the tyres, manage the fuel, but also go racing. And that's what it's all about here. We have a huge contrast in terms of this race versus the previous races, whereby we've not adjusted the fuel intake of the cars or adjusted the balance of performance. We're running the standard balance of performance here, but now we've got a longer race distance, and perhaps that's going to upset the flow for some drivers who've had it relatively easy so far in terms of race distance. And I know a number of drivers were saying to me down in the paddock that they did have a degree of concern with regards to the fact they were running a longer race distance tonight, and it may be a little bit uncomfortable for them, whereas others were saying they're really looking forward to it and feeling that it's going to be very comfortable for them in return. But without further ado then, let's head to the live circuit right now and show you what's happening around the circuit right now. And as we can see, we're currently spectating Kevin Harricone as he's making his way up the hill through Uruge and Radion here through turns 3, 4 and 5. The Ferrari driver P3 in this final practice session right now, and continuing to show us the form which has made him a contender for the top 10. But again, it just hasn't quite worked out for him in some of the races. And Harricone tonight, when I had the chance to catch up to him as he was making his way into the car, was saying he's got nothing to lose tonight. And that's coming back to what I was saying earlier about he's going to throw the kitchen sink. He's going to throw everything at the racing tonight in order to get a good result. He's going to just drive to enjoy his race and fight for a good result, and he really thinks he has a good chance here, because even if the Porsches do manage a good quality lap, he's going to eat them alive during the race distance. And the fact that it's a 2-hour race, he expects it to be a bit more difficult than the 75-minute races we've run previously, so his mental focus will be at its highest yet, and he's going to be pushing to the utmost limit. And indeed, Harricone throughout, when I've had the chance to speak to him, I've spoken to him about the Porsches seemingly being dominant, he's always said to me that he'd like the opportunity to upset what seems to be the flow low, where the Porsches just seem to have that edge on all the other cars, and can he get that Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo up there to the very top tonight, or at least on the podium? I know that he was looking for a podium at the Nürburgring last time out, but of course that unfortunate spin due to the instance on the opening lap meant that he saw himself fall out of the race and there was no recovery in the end. He had to practically retire the car before it could even get properly racing. But tonight he'll be looking to do his best, because I know his dad will be tuning in once again and looking for his son to have a solid result. He's currently P3 in this final practice session, only 2 tenths off of our fastest man right now. And that, of course, is Ethan Faulkner. 2 minutes 17.4 exactly there is his lap as he makes his way down through Podium right now. And the distinct GG driver, we know the Irishman, as I said, will be looking to do everything he can today to make up for what have been a dismal set of races with the Hungaroring, with the Nürburgring, and even going earlier into the season. It's never quite worked out for the Irishman, but can he finally get himself onto that podium? He has been pushing for the podium for so long, and we wonder whether he'll be able to achieve it. But as we look a little bit further down around the order as well, with only 5 minutes to go before we get underway with the driver's briefing, I should also point out to you that as we look around, that we do have some other drivers who are further down the field, of course, who right now will be looking to get a solid result once again. We've got Dave Jr., for example, the Team SRHI car, the number 10 car there, the Mercedes AMG. And when I caught up with Dave after what was his strongest performance at the Nürburgring, getting himself up into that top 10, he was very pleased with that result last time out. As for tonight, he's excited, and it's always great to be driving at a track like Spa, he was telling me, because he's had plenty of battles in other series in the past, and he's looking to achieve a decent result here. He'll be doing the rain dance, however. He'll be hoping for rain. He loves driving in the rain, and we saw that at the Nürburgring at the German circuit. But now the Belgian circuit, he's just looking to finish off the season strong and have a good, clean race. He's got his fingers crossed, and we've got our fingers crossed for him as well. We're hopeful that he can achieve what he desires, but we of course have our fingers crossed for all of our drivers. We're not allowed to play favourites, although I'm sure you guys and girls in the chat are definitely playing favourites right now. We've got 19 drivers at the circuit. We are expecting up to approximately 28 drivers to arrive. We have had a number of drivers had to say they cannot make tonight, such as, for example, Ross Bartel, as we mentioned earlier, and also Mia Svensson. But still, what we lack in the quantity of drivers, we definitely still have phenomenal quality up and down the field, and you're going to see that here. Now, another driver I had the opportunity to have a little chat to as he was making his way down the paddock, heading in towards the BMW M6, was Adrian Neusinger, the Swiss driver who we've been watching throughout the Dream Pace Racing driver here. And what he was saying with regards to tonight's race is the fact that he's really looking forward to tonight's final, in the fact that Spa is his favourite track in the calendar, and it's his best opportunity for a good qualifying session with the M6. He's just got to be careful not to overpush the car in the race and keep within the track limits. He's worried about those potential track limit penalties creeping in, and he's going to be targeting to do his best tonight. As you see, he makes his way through Blanchimont and now through turn number 18, and then heads up towards bus stop, and we can hear the roar there of the V8 combined with the twin turbos as it makes its way into that braking zone for turns 19 and 20. As he makes his way through there and now heads around to go on to another lap here, we take a look further around. We've got the return, of course, of Jesse Monroe's here. We can see the Bentley driver heading down towards bus stop as well. The BSP Racing driver in a car which does look very nice in its livery, and indeed the Bentley driver doing rather well over the course of the season. The results haven't always gone their way, but they've been battling there in the lower portion of the pack, and we have seen some fantastic racing. And Jesse last time, of course, at Nürburgring, having some very close battles with the like of Tony Hill and also Jason Wilcox, as we see that Monrose makes their way through at turn number 1 once again. And speaking of Wilcox, well, here is the Porsche driver with the driver's briefing about to get underway within the next minute and a half or so. We'll be heading over to listening to that very shortly, but we'll come back to Wilcox, the Metallica Racing driver, and what he had to say post the driver's briefing. We can see just parked up there in the Porsche and looking up for another decent result tonight to wrap up the season. Indeed, a lot of our drivers, but one thing you may be wondering, and you're probably saying to me right now, can you just move the camera a little bit down to take a look at the Grumpy Monkey machine underneath? Because we can see it does have a rather fetching livery, and indeed the Grumpy Monkey team are here only represented by Brett Krugkamp tonight, the South African driver, of course, being one of the 2 drivers there alongside Ross Bartel. But they're running a new livery tonight, and they wanted to make sure that it was shown off to the world, and indeed here it is, and it is a lovely looking livery indeed. What are the contrast of the colours there, and perhaps that will spook a couple of drivers and perhaps shock them. They'll see the Grumpy Monkey coming before through, or even more beautiful than before, or even more aggressive in terms of its looks. We will have to wait and see what Krugkamp is able to do, and we'll inform you of what he had to say going into tonight's race a little bit later on after that driver's briefing. But right now, everybody getting themselves set, and I believe everybody has popped into the pits. So we in turn are now going to make our way into the driver's briefing room. So we are going to look away from the circuit, and we're hopping into that driver's briefing room, and we are waiting for Kevin Smith right now to make his way in and give us the introduction and whatnot. Now, I must say, ladies and gentlemen, I've also just been informed that Brandon Warren will not be able to make tonight's race, unfortunately, due to a clash of personal circumstances. But still, it is one of those... Oh, my apologies, he is going to be making it tonight. We're going to read out to you what he had to say in a short while. Sorry, they're just misreading. I've had some information from Brandon Warren coming at the last possible minute. But right now, we are waiting for that driver's briefing, and Kevin Smith will take us away at any moment. Now, for the uninitiated, here we go. Kevin's in the room. And we're just waiting for him right now. I think some drivers are still taking to their virtual seats as they're waiting.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the final round. We have only got 20 of yous on the grid at the moment. We don't expect any more to turn up tonight, unfortunately, but just bear in mind, no queuing in the final sector for qualifying. There's plenty of room to go around on track, especially with the smaller grid. Driving standards lately have been fantastic, so we'll be keeping the same penalty structure in place. Please do remember there is a very small chance of rain. We're not expecting it to rain, but in the event it does, obviously if you feel the need, put your wets on or risk it for the dry line and try and take that win. Other than that, I believe that's everything, unless anyone has any questions. If no one has any questions, we shall get qualifying underway in just over 3 minutes, and good luck everyone, and you're free to leave the room.
So as we heard there, ladies and gentlemen, a very quick driver's briefing today from Kevin Smith, who advised us that we are expecting a possible small chance of rain, but otherwise it should be cloudy with a bit of sunshine over the Spa circuit. And as I look out the commentary box right now, I can tell you, looking back to the live pictures, that we do have clear skies as it currently stands, with some clouds whizzing over, but it's the case that we are not expecting any major rainfall at this point in time. But if it does come, that will definitely shake things up in the course of the 2 hours. And I was just going to say before the driver's briefing got underway that we just heard from Brandon Warren with regards to the racing tonight, and we're going to give you all the information with regards to what Warren had to say to us, as he's just popped us a couple of messages, as we thought he may not be able to make tonight, but he's just been able to get out on circuit, and that is great to hear with regards to Brandon Warren, who's made his way in, and we expect him to turn up at the circuit in a very short order. But we are just waiting now to get underway with the qualifying session, and all of our drivers parked up in the pit, so we're not expecting any major action right now, but we have only got the best part of 2 to 3 minutes, and then we will be getting underway. And as we do continue to wait, we can see here Ingo Hermann just sat in the pits as well. The German driver currently the 10th fastest in the practice session there. We can see that Faulkner holding the fastest time, and Mathis Voss, who is in the centre of the screen right now, the Intruder Racing Team driver, very close on the heels of Faulkner. The two of them sharing 2:17.4 times, the fastest times, and the only two drivers to make it into the 2:17.4s in this final practice. But of course, remember, these practice times are not necessarily indicative of qualifying times. We've normally seen that qualifying times are approximately at least 3 to 4 tenths faster, if not more so, than the practice times. And normally drivers are running on race setups at this point, or a hybrid setup between race and also qualifying, in order just to get a feel for the circuit, get a feel for the rubber that's being laid down, and then they can get themselves nicely prepared for that qualifying session. And that's the thing in qualifying, with there being 15 minutes, and also our drivers being told not to queue. Qualifying time is at its premium, and here with the lap being approximately 2.25 minutes, or we say over 2 minutes 10, what that does mean is our drivers will have a very limited number of laps available to them. Approximately 4 to 5 qualifying laps available, and they'll need to find good track space, good track position in order to go charging. And speaking of Brandon Warren, he is here. We can see him right at the end of the paddock right now of the pit lane. The VRS Satellite Racing driver back for the finale, and the American in the number 233 car. We look forward to seeing what he is able to achieve here tonight at the Belgian circuit. And Warren having really come alive in the second half of the season. We have seen his performances continually improve, and can Warren continue that momentum tonight after missing out at the Nürburgring last week, not able to take part at his favourite circuit, but he's back tonight with a vengeance and looking to go racing. We'll bring you his thoughts very shortly, as we can see the car being jacked up briefly just to do some final settings changes and get it ready for qualifying. Qualifying due to commence in just under a minute, ladies and gentlemen, and then we will be seeing who is going to be our pole sitter for the finale tonight. And in terms of the track temperature and conditions, we can see we've got clouds currently over the circuit with bits of sunshine in between as well, and then we've got that optimum track grip at the moment from what we're hearing in terms of the rubber being laid down. Ambient temperature 22 degrees centigrade and track temperature 29 degrees centigrade. There's no major concerns with regards to temperatures. Nice average temperatures for this time of year in terms of the circuit right now, although it has been a heat wave in a good portion of Europe over the last couple of weeks, and I do feel sorry for those who have been affected that, and my best wishes do go to those affected by the adverse weather we've had recently. But fortunately for us, we do not have the adverse weather here, as we're about to get underway with qualifying. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, as we head back to your live pictures for this qualifying session, we can already see a good number of drivers have made their way out, and we have got Chris Zeuger, the Swiss driver here, the lead driver who's come out of the pits first and foremost, the CHF Motorsport driver, as he makes his way down towards Les Combes. Turns 7, 8 and 9, of course, and Zeuger, last time out, of course, with that P2, he was expecting or hoping to bring home the win, but in the end, the difference between himself and his teammate Vesfield was simply one mistake on the second stint. And can Zeuger be able to improve upon that tonight, iron out those mistakes, because he has been looking very strong, particularly in the second half of this season. He has come alive after what was a good start in the season opener at Catalonia, but he started to fall back a little bit compared to the competition, only to bounce back in the second half. As we see behind him there, we do have Kevin Harikonen, who's hugging close behind Zeuger, trying to put a little bit of pressure on him. Perhaps the Intruder Racing team driver is essentially trying to get into the head of Zeuger and trying to put him off a little bit, alternatively just trying to get around as quickly as possible, because what with time at the moment being so limited, we see Zeuger there moving out of the way, and we've got wild drivers coming down, and we've got Jonathan Atkinson as well there. We can see the OTL Racing driver making his way through turns 13 and 14, as we see a little bit of dust being kicked up there through the medium speed chicane, and as he comes all the way through it and down into Stablo 1 here. It's good to see Atkinson back out on the circuit as well. Lovely to see the Bentley charge around Atkinson, a strong driver of course, and we're expecting plenty of results from him over the course of the season, and tonight even more so. And he has had a couple of races where his race has been over in the opening lap, alternatively midway through the race he's been at the victim point of an incident which has nothing to do with himself, and he's seen a strong race go to ruin. But tonight hopefully that will not be the case, as we see the Zeuger making his way around. But the one driver we are going to be focusing on as he takes us onto a lap is Kevin Harikonen, the Frenchman, the number 723 driver, as we ride on board here for a lap of Spa, our opening flying lap, as will be taken on board by the Intruder Racing Team driver. So coming across the timing line then in the run down towards La Source, making his way in towards the heavy braking zone here. We're going to see he's going to be coming all the way down through the gears into first gear, and as he makes his way through, getting on the power as quickly as possible as he passes through the apex there. And as soon as the rear settles, charging down through turn 2 right now, and now he's going to be making his way up to the run through turns 3 to 5. It's the Uruge Radeon complex here, left, right, left. He'll go. You'll see he's going to flip the car over to the left and then hang as close to the apex on the right before trying to push over the brow of the hill here for turn 5. Flat out there, phenomenal run, and into turn 6 he goes. The right hander flat out and onto the Kimmel straight. A long run now, heading up towards the top speed of the car here as he heads into the braking zone for Les Combes. Very shortly, the fastest Porsche of the circuit this, and as he comes into that braking zone, he moves into the second sector here as he comes through turns 7 and 8, the right into left combination, and now he's going to fly over to the left hand side before swiftly turning the steering wheel to the right and frying the car at the apex there, going through turn 9. Could have perhaps rode a tiny bit higher on the apex there, but as he now comes down into turn 10 here, an extended right hander downhill as well, so that braking zone is extended, and he has to be careful about going too deep on the brakes as he comes out the corner into turn 11. He's about to go into X corner here, ride high on the apex curve and then get on the throttle and use the runoff area in order to be able to build up the speed as he heads down towards Podium right now. Podium being all about bravery and having the ability to go late on the brakes here as he turns in towards the first apex of Podium and then flows out of turn 12, and now it's the run down the hill towards the medium speed chicane here, and you can see they're holding as much speed as possible on exit before coming into that braking zone once again. Coming down to third gear at this point, and you can see taking an aggressive attack line there into the apex, really pointing the car for him. We have seen this from our Ferrari drivers throughout the season. They like to go nose into those apexes nice and early as he comes out of turn 14 into Stablo 1, and we see here coming all the way down to second or third gear before running wide there and now attacking through Stablo 2. A small lift potentially, but it doesn't sound like it. I think he's gone full flat out through Stablo 2, and that's the long charge up towards Blanchimont here into turn 17 and 18. 17 being the first of the two left-handers here, so into 17 he goes, and it's going to be flat out here through both parts of Blanchimont, we expect. We'll listen in. Flat out through Blanchimont, and now coming into the braking zone for turns 19 and 20, the bus stop chicane all the way down through the gears here to first gear, and you can see nailing it very nicely on the brakes there, and into the left-hander at turn 20. He's going to use the full runoff area here, and as he goes to cross that timing line, what will it be for our opening flying lap of this qualifying session? It is a 2:17.9, a decent lap, but I suspect other drivers will be trying to push for it, as we see Ingo Hermann sets a 1.7 second lap off of the pole time right now. We can see that Jonathan Atkinson, meanwhile, 2.5 tenths slower than Harikonen, but a strong lap from the Bentley driver for his opener. The Briton doing it very nicely there, as we see Vesfield, meanwhile, making his way through. The bus stop chicane goes a bit deep and wide of the apex of turn 19, but holds it back together through the second part, and he's going to cross that timing line, and what will it be from the Swiss driver? He crosses the line, and it is... well, it has not registered as a lap so far, so I think Field instead going around for another lap. There might be a track limits incursion there, and as a result, the lap not counting because it was listed as a 2:22, so I think he's run wide somewhere, as we see Jesse Monroe's, meanwhile, making their way up towards Blanchimont right now, the Bentley driver here, and flying into the double left-hander, and going full attack into turn number 18. Here we go then, and just going a bit wide of apex there, but able to keep the car just within the track limits, but Monroe's going to have to be careful of that one in race conditions, because running wide there, particularly if they go too wide, it could lead them picking up some marbles on the tyres and losing some additional grip down into the braking zone for bus stop. Also picking up a track limits warning as we see Monroe's crossing the line as Faulkner takes provisional pole on a 2:17.685, but Monroe's crossing the line there, and it doesn't look as though the time counted. There's a track limits warning somewhere around the lap, and also I believe they may have had a bit of a run-off or alternative part of the car, because that last time is coming in as a 2:45.777. But we see Brett Krugkamp right now going on to a flying lap as well, and the Grumpy Monkey driver here as they make their way through the right-hander. Let's tell you what Brett had to say down in the paddock with myself. He's given it his best tonight. All season long, he's had fair race pace, but have really struggled to qualify well, and that's made every round really tough. He has finished every round this season inside the top 10, and he's going to at least finish the last round in the top 10. That's his target, to make it all top 10s, and can the 519 Mobile be able to do it? We'll have to wait and see, but if anyone can, Krugkamp can, as he makes his way down the Kimmel Straight right now and into the braking zone for Lacombe as he continues to charge down here. And it looks so long, this straight, and indeed it feels, I can tell you behind the wheel running down here, it feels like one of the longest straights of your life, but when you get to that braking zone for Lacombe, it literally snaps back to reality in terms of you've got to be on those brakes and ready to go into that right into left combination, and he's doing very nicely through Lacombe there as he now comes down towards the braking zone here for turn number 10, also known as Brussels corner, and as he comes into the corner, you can see it just running a little bit wide of apex, but then tightening it up on the second part of the apex there, and a very nice line as a result for Krugkamp as he now comes into X corner, of course, named after the infamous Jackie X, as he comes through at turn at number 11 and charges down towards Pouon, and as he continues to do so here, we look from the exterior cameras as we can see we're having some more times coming, and Harikonen improves to a 2:17.388. The competition is on between the two Ferrari drivers, Harikonen and Faulkner, for that provisional pole position. As we see Dave Jr. gets in the mix there, 2.5 tenths off of Harikonen's pole time right now, but Dave Jr. in the Mercedes goes P2. What can Krugkamp do here as he's making his way through turns at 13 and 14 right now? He flows through the sequence of corners here, and very, very smooth indeed. That Bentley swimming around the corners here, very graceful indeed. Whilst it may be considered or nicknamed the Boatley by some drivers down the paddock, I can tell you that Krugkamp is making it look anything other than a flying boat as he comes out of turn number 16 here and heads down towards Bronchimont once again, charging all the way down as he continues to do so here. It's all about 9 wins to turn in for Blanchimont, and we'll be expecting that Krugkamp's going to try and do it as close to flat out as possible, albeit with the understeer invoked, with the engine being in the front of the car, it may be a small lift, but no concerns about running wide there as he comes up into that braking zone. Half the qualifying session remaining, and in to the final two corners he goes. And what can Krugkamp do here as he flicks into the left-hander? He comes through, and the time will be coming up our screens very shortly as he goes across that timeline. It is going to be from the South African here, is P11, a 2:18.639. So I think qualifying may be another bit of an uphill battle for Crew Camp, but he's in at P11 at the moment, just outside the top 10. He'll probably just want to gain a couple more places. There's probably a couple more attempts out there on the circuit right now, but we look back up towards our front. I can see that Dave Jr. right now, you're looking at him, the Mercedes AMG driver, coming down into left-hander of Poole, and of course turn at number 12, doing a very solid job in this qualifying session. And well, with the fact that he's so excited to be racing, I think the fact he's in provisional P2 right now is going to be bringing a massive smile to his face. But going from one driver to another, let's have a quick talk about a driver who we were introducing earlier, and that's Brandon Warren, who's currently heading out onto a flying lap, the American driver. Now, what he was saying, he just dropped us a quick message before he got in the car, and that's why we were a little bit confused. We thought when we quickly read it that he wasn't arriving tonight. He wasn't able to make the Nürburgring GP circuit last week, and that was, of course, his frustration with the fact that it was his favourite circuit and he wasn't able to race there, and that meant that he plummeted to 18th in the standings. But with this being the longest race on the calendar at Spa, and people we expect not to be as aggressive in the openers, even though it's going to be the season finale, he's going to be cautious today and restrained from pushing too hard and taking unnecessary risks, as he feels that Spa is one of those tracks where every pass feels like a huge risk, because there's a lot of trust involved and it's usually done at such high speeds. And we saw that multiple times over the calendar years in the real world with regards to drivers battling 2 or 3 wide in the run up through Rouge and also Radion, and having to back out of it, or if they stay committed to it, both drivers have got to show one another that racing room respect. But coming back to Brandon Warren, we're saying as well, he hopefully can do some damage control given the fact that he missed last week's round, but he's not sure how well he's going to perform tonight because he's only returned home from a trip a couple of days ago and had little time to practice. But still, he's going to use tonight as a launch pad to next season, because he's going to be making a switch to the Nissan GTR in season 2. We're going to have Brandon Warren back out on the circuit, and it's been an experience for him to be in the Ferrari for VRS Satellite Racing, but switching over to the Nissan GTR is going to give the Ferrari one last good go tonight, and that is great to hear from Brandon Warren. It's good to see him out on the circuit. He was cutting it close. It was a 50-50 about where he was going to be able to make tonight, but to see him here live on circuit is fantastic news. Of course, we love to see everyone here, and that gives us a grid of 21 drivers, albeit we may not be expecting as few of this when we go into season 2, indeed at the start of this season, but still our 21 drivers tonight are really the creme de la creme in terms of those battling for the positions. Not to disrespect, of course, the drivers who've withdrawn, but we're still very grateful to those who are remaining. But Mathis was in P6 right now, making his way through Porn. Once again, the Intruder Racing Team driver, and Voss, of course, being one of those drivers who's been so strong in the qualifying sessions, particularly in the first half of the season, where he seemed untouchable in qualifying. But in the second half of the season, it just seems as though the momentum has switched the other way. And speaking of momentum that switched the other way, here is one driver who right now owns pole position provisionally, and that is Ben Walker on a 2:17.265. A phenomenal qualifying lap there. It's a 10th faster than Kevin Harrakonen's best right now, and we are waiting to see what Walker is able to do here tonight, given the fact he put in that colossal effort at the Nürburgring circuit to come home in what was P3 in the end. Indeed, he'll be looking to emulate that and repeat it, if not go 2 steps further tonight, as we see he makes his way back out into the circuit for what will be one out lap in his final flying lap, as we also got Nicholas Tardioli right now coming through the double right hand combination of Stabilo 1 and Stabilo 2. The Valkyrie Esport driver, they're going a little bit wide there out of Stabilo 2, but just keeping it within track limits. The 2 right hand wheels staying within those track limits as we come to understand it, as he makes his way right now up towards Blanchimont once again. And speaking of other drivers, we had the opportunity to have a chat to. We didn't have quite the opportunity to catch up with Tardioli, but we did have the chance to catch up with Jonathan Atkinson. And what he was saying going into this is that he's looking forward to this race. He's just going to enjoy as much as he can. And that being said, if he finishes inside the top 10, he'll be very happy with that tonight. Indeed, we will have to wait and see what he's able to achieve here as he continues to make his way around the circuit. And the last driver I did have a chance to catch up to is Jason Wilcox, the Metallica Racing driver. And he was quite short on his thoughts, but to be fair to him, sometimes keeping it short and sweet is what it's all about. As you see, he makes his way right now around down towards Lake Holm very shortly here, as I believe we may have actually lost Wilcox. In fact, what has happened to Wilcox there? The car looks as though it's in a very sorry state of affairs. I think he's been into the wall coming out of what was onto the Kimmel straight there, but something has gone very wrong, or he's just listing the car along right now. But what Wilcox was saying going into tonight is that he's aiming to have the stickiest possible tyres for tonight's race, trying to give himself the best possible grip in terms of car setup and whatnot, and he doesn't want to make a mess of Eau Rouge at all. So Eau Rouge, of course, in a very challenging corner, turns 3 and 4, and he'll be looking to nail that right every single time. But right now, as we've only got really 2 minutes to go this qualifying session, it is Ben Walker who is currently our provisional pole sitter by only 0.6 of a second, as Field right now is trying to hunt down that pole position once again. And Field has really started to now qualifying in the second half of the season. It hasn't worked out in the first half of the season. He told us at the midpoint in the season in the post-race interview after round 4 that qualifying is where he needed to focus his efforts. Qualifying, he was letting himself down in his own words, but now he's really coming on strong as he goes a bit wide there at Podium, but he will have one more lap after this one. And Kevin Harrakonen right now, who is making his way through Blanchimont, and we're going to see him go onto one more lap. What can Harrakonen do? Can he get himself back onto that front row and be alongside Walker, or will it be Faulkner instead, who's in P6 right now? As we see, he goes wide there at Stavolo 2. He will still have one more lap to go, as we've also got Ugo Gianpietro, who's in the pits. In fact, his qualifying's over right now. This is Brandon Warren's, so Gianpietro will be starting P5 at best, and Harrakonen will be, as he pulls into the pits, will be starting P3 at best right now. So it's a competition between Walker and Field as to who will be on pole, or will we see, say, Dave Jr. or Ethan Faulkner come through right now as they go on to their final laps. And I can tell you that Jr. is making his way down towards what is Les Combes. Let's jump on board then with Dave Jr. as he makes his way in towards turn number 7 then, and we'll take you through the rest of the lap on the Mercedes driver's perspective. So coming into Les Combes, and what you're going to see the difference here, watch how with regards to the Mercedes, he has to be more gradual and building up the throttle through the apex of the corners, because he's got the engine towards the front of the car. It's front engine rear wheel drive compared to the Ferrari we showed you earlier, which is mid engine rear wheel drive, and that means he's going to experience a lot of understeer. You can see the understeer there. He's got it very wrong into turn 10, although he's been able to recover the late apex there. That's going to cost him approximately 1.5 tenths, because he's not been able to get on the throttle as early and therefore make the corner symmetrical. So Junior, as a result, losing out there as he now comes through X and down into Pouon. And let's see where he's able to nail the double left sequence here of turn number 12. As you can see, he has to be so cautious on that throttle, but a very clean line there and a tight exit line. That's what you want as he flies up onto the right hand side of the hill and now comes down towards turn number 13. As he comes in here again, you can see how the car just fighting against it, wants to understeer forward all the way, wants to continue on a straight line, but he's having to force the car through as he goes a little wide out 14, but keeps it together, uses the mass of the car in order to stabilise it. And now through Stavolo 1 and heading up towards Stavolo 2 here, he's going to be flicking it into the right hander and gets it nice and tight on the apex curve there, although a little bit high, and actually started to over rotate the rear of the car slightly, but he just powered for it as Vesfield has pulled into the pits. So right now Ben Walker is looking to take part of a 2:17.265. I can tell you as it currently stands that Junior's lap is not looking as though it's going to be that, unless he has a phenomenal last sector right now. He is 3.5 tenths off our provisional pole sitter as he comes into the braking zone for bus stop here, and it's going to be an aggressive line. He's really going for it, is Junior, as he comes in towards turn 20, and it's the run out here. I think he's trying to get himself onto that second row. Can he do it, however, as he comes across that timing line? What will Junior be able to do here? And he improves, but it's not enough. He improves by a tenth, but that 2:17.5 does not promote him anyway, but it gives him better safety to be on that third row as we see Ethan Faulkner right now coming down towards Blanchimont here. What can the Irishman do? His best so far is a 2:17.685. Can he get himself further out the orders? We can see there that drivers are continuing to move as Ben Walker has not improved and has got the provisional par of a 2:17.265 right now. Can the two distinct GG drivers be on that front row? Can Faulkner get alongside his teammate, or will it be the case that he's going to be starting in the mid-pack of the top 10? He comes through bus stop and then he's only got the run to the straight line here to the finish line, and as he crosses that timing line he does not improve, and it means that Faulkner will be starting P7, and I believe as he parks it into the wall there, as Richard Jett has got himself up into P4. Richard Jett, we haven't talked about too much, the Harwin racing driver, getting himself up into P4 at the end of the qualifying session. The pole position goes to Ben Walker. You can see him there in amongst all the cars parked up. Walker with a phenomenal job to set a 2:17.265, and we've seen somebody else take pole position here. And could it be the case we could see someone other than Mathis Voss or Vesfield take the win today? That is the big question as we see all our drivers making their way around to the pits right now. Jett doing very well to finish with a P4 in the end, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is qualifying complete. We'll be back very shortly for the racing action. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, we are back and we can see that our grid is starting to form there on what is and the run up the hill, and of course we'll be going racing and not at the final timing line. We have the offset start line compared to the finish line of this circuit. Of course, the finish line being a corner back. We start after La Source here with regards to the rolling start as we come to understand it, but all of our drivers getting ready to go racing, and really everybody right now looking towards their strategies, and the one none more so than other, our pole position man, and he's finally been able to break the trend where we've seen Porsches locking out the front row. Ben Walker getting himself onto the front row here, and you've got to imagine that right now inside the distinct GG driver is probably smiling from ear to ear, knowing that whilst it's not complete yet, he's still got the whole 2-hour race distance to go, starting off of course with the formation lap to get into that double file rolling start. He's done enough to upset the table slightly and upset the trend of the Porsches being right on the front row all the time. Of course, he will not have it his own way. He will have Vesfield, who we can see here parked alongside him right now in the Swiss, whilst he's won the championship subject to any major penalties being leveraged. Of course, he was disqualified from the series tonight, but we're not expecting that at all, given the high standard of racing that all of our drivers have shown, particularly Field, but all of them have shown. Field right now really just needs to bring the car home to secure that championship win, but he will of course want to go racing. He'll want to go for the win. He will want to make it 4 wins back-to-back in the second half of the season, which would be a phenomenal statistic to take home going into potentially season 2 if he does decide to come back for season 2. Of course, some of our drivers are yet to declare as we take a look around here, but we've also got Kevin Harrakonen starting in P3 here, the Ferrari driver. He really did give it his all in qualifying, and I think for him this is his best opportunity to get a podium, if not go for the win out here. And we've also got into the mix, we've got the 2 Mercedes of Richard Jepp, the Harwin Racing driver, and behind him Dave Jr., the American. The 2 Mercedes doing a phenomenal job to get themselves right up there into that top 5, and I think with that they've got a lot of momentum going into the race tonight. As we say hello to Tom Gander on the YouTube channel, who's saying, blimey, I'm going to need to find some pace for season 2. Well, of course, at the same time, Tom, we welcome everybody, whether they are an amateur or a professional. We welcome everybody to this series. That's what it's all about, finding fellow drivers to have a little bit of pace and battle out in the race. And we have seen some plentiful battles further down the field, and the likes of which I'm describing here are the likes of Gareth Mills, for example, who we can see parked up right now a little bit further down, although you can't quite get the camera on him. He is in that Audi R8, and in fact, as we do get an onboard with Gareth Mills, a fan favourite for a lot of drivers have had their fans, but Gareth Mills has had a huge number of people supporting him from the GM Racing team. Indeed, the Audi driver, the number 4 car, starting in P19. A reasonable qualifying session for Gareth Mills, and will he be able to stay within the top 20 tonight and get himself perhaps up into that top 15? With only 21 drives here, I think there's a good opportunity of that top 20, and I think he'll be looking for a top 15 finish to round off what has been a good learning season for Mills. It's really been coming from strength to strength, from round to round. We saw him all the way at the start, right towards the back, but he's been moving up the field time and time again. And the same story for Tony Hill here, really, with regards to the fact that this season has come alive. As we can see there, the lime green Ferrari in the mix of the cars parked up on the grid right now. The ULAGS driver in P17 will be looking to give it his all tonight. The number 50 driver having had some great battles with the likes of Gareth Mills, with Jesse Monrose, with Jason Wilcox. Indeed, plenty more action between them. But as we look a little bit further up the order right now, Mathis Voss with the lowest qualifying position of his season by far, a P8, and the Intruder Racing Team driver, we know how fast he is. We know how he comes alive in the races. If he's not on pole, it's not something that's going to deter him from pushing hard, but we are going to see the ultimate test from Voss tonight. Can he find his way up through the field and get himself onto that podium, if not the win? He would love, I'm sure, to get another win after what has been a frustrating season where he's been in the commanding position, particularly in the first half, only to see those wins slip away, and it took him the best part of multiple attempts in order to finally seal the win. But again, will he be able to do it once more tonight? And Brett Krugkamp finally getting himself into that top 10 in qualifying here at Spa, and we can see they'll be going racing from P10. And I think for Krugkamp, it's going to be one of those ones where it's all about consistency. And we know that the Grumpy Monkey guys of Bartle and Krugkamp, of course, only Krugkamp's here tonight, love to race consistently. As we've only got 10 seconds to go before Ben Walker will take us away, and we are expecting then after the formation lap to go racing for the 2 hours here. And I can tell you, with regards to conditions, that the temperature on the track has dropped by degrees centigrade, but we've still got clouds over the circuit. No rain at the moment, as Ben Walker takes us away then for the formation lap. And we'll see our drivers warm up as best as possible here. They've got a long lap in order to warm up the car as everybody pulls away. And starting in P7, it wasn't to be the ultimate qualifying session for Ethan Faulkner, but you can be sure starting in P7, he will have his eyes on the Porsche of Hugo Gianpietro, I should say, in front of him, and he'll also be very wary of Richard Jebb and Dave Jr., the two Mercedes drivers. And we know the Mercedes are strong on the straights, but it's the Ferraris in those medium speed corners which seem to really surge life. And here in Sector 2, I can only imagine how strong that Ferrari is going to be compared to the Mercedes ahead of it. But we've also got to watch out for the Porsches, and to be fair, the Porsches, we have heard from multiple Porsche drivers up and down the paddock saying that there's this fine balance between getting it right in the Porsche with regards to the tyre wear and getting it wrong, and Chris Oiga will be one of many who knows about that story. Starting in P9 today, hasn't been the best of qualifying sessions, but you can imagine that Zoiga once again will be looking to bring to life that consistency that we've seen from him multiple times. As we see there that Jonathan Atkinson going a bit wide off the circuit there, perhaps just trying to get a little too eager and warming up the tyres, but still he's returned to the circuit A-OK, starting that P11 position, surrounded with another Bentley driver of Crew Camp, of course. And it's the case that Atkinson and Crew Camp, keep your eyes out for them, because they will be the drivers who try to come through the field gradually over the course of the race. We know that with Atkinson, he can do a recovery drive. We have seen so many recovery performances from Atkinson over the course of the season, and really, if you had to give a medal for recovery drives, you would give it to Atkinson by default, just for the simple reason every time it's gone wrong, he's found a way of getting a result back out of a race. Will he be able to avoid having to make a recovery drive today? We will have to wait and see as they make their way through turns 10 and 11 and head down towards Podium right now, and then all the way down a little bit further down the order. Robert Velkovsky, of course, the German driver here in the back to motion machine in the Porsche there, distinct through the fact that it's got the blue surrounding livery with the red-orange stripe for it. Throwback to some of the older Porsche racing colours, and we can see him making his way right now down towards Podium, and everybody getting ready to race. And I do really think, speaking to NXTGEN Ultra there in YouTube, what are your thoughts on Ben Walker 13 on pole? This is his best chance to take P2 overall, definitely. If Walker can nail this, I think he's in with a huge chance. And we know that for the two distinct GG drivers, we heard from Walker at the Nürburgring how happy he was to be on that podium. And knowing there's still more work to do at Spa, and he was looking to really come forward at Spa with even more momentum and get a solid result. And I think for Walker, if he can nail the opening 15 minutes and hold Phil and Harrikonen behind, then he will have a strong chance here. But I think the driver we've got to watch out for at the moment, well, there's two drivers. It's Harrikonen starting in P3. You've got to be aware of him because he will want to prove himself after that difficult Nürburgring GP race. We know how fast he is as a driver, but I think he really has it in his mind that he needs to be able to show that he can be on that podium. This race is important for him psychologically in order to be able to move forward following this season. Meanwhile, further down, of course, you've got Ethan Faulkner here, who is chomping at the bit, I am sure, in that cockpit to be able to finish on that podium and finally be on that podium after what has been just a torrent of disastrous race and things just not going his way, as everybody now starts to form up for what is the race start here. Everybody coming to live down the run towards Blanchimont here, as we can see everybody starting to crowd in, and we're going to be getting that double file formation starting to form out towards a bus stop here as we look a little bit further down. And I can tell you that also with regards to Ingo Hermann starting in P16, keep your eyes out for the Team Mouse driver here, for the simple reason that he does not necessarily qualify too well, but he will come up, and he is a very strong defensive driver in his Hermann. We saw at the Nürburgring how well he could defend from drivers coming through, and also how he could be relentless in staying on the back of other drivers, particularly hunting down the Bentley drivers. And really, it's been the story of Hermann over the course of the season where he's been battling it. It's always normally been a Bentley we've seen him battling, as we see all of our drivers now clustering together, and we'll be waiting for Ben Walker to take us away once we come out of La Source. As you can see, everybody making their way through bus stop right now, and the sequence being formed. In fact, it might be the start after the bus stop. Let's wait and see. As they come out of La Source, we'll wait for Ben Walker to take us away. And it's lights out and away we go for the final round of the Next Gen European GT3 Championship, as we see Walker gets the best start there as Harakona immediately goes on the offensive, hugging very close to the back of Walker as they all charge up through Rouge and Radion. All drivers making it through safe and sound right now, but Harakona gaining immediately, and in the slipstream battle here down towards what will be Lecom, down towards turn number 7. Will we see Field make an attempt here to try and get packed past? No, he settles in behind here, playing it conservatively, as we see a little bit further back. GM Petro already been jumped by Faulkner as they all make their way into the heavy braking zone, and Zoiga trying to go around the outside as GM Petro goes deep, and also another Porsche there goes deep, and I believe that was the Porsche of Mathis Voss who got it very wrong under braking and is out onto the grass there. As we see, we've also got another car, I think that's Brett Krugkamp, who's had a disaster indeed. Krugkamp and also Adrian Loisinger, they've all gone off there at Lecom, and I think there's been a bit of a major incident there involving Voss turning in through the field as there was a mistake, and we saw multiple cars go deep, but Walker right now still leading as they come out of Vix, ahead of Harakkonen and Field behind, as we see Dave Jr. holding on to that P4 position, and Richard Jepp is right now in P5, but he has got a very hungry Ethan Faulkner chasing after him as well. Behind these guys, we've also got Ugo Gianpietro, who is being chased by Zoiga right now, and of course Gianpietro going deep into Lecom, and we saw Zoiga go with him around the outside. He was trying to go around the outside, and then as a result of that, the stockade started to happen, the Constantine effect happened, and that's where Voss had the contact and went sideways across the circuit at turns 7 and 8. But right now, with all our drivers making their way through the medium speed chicane of 13 and 14, we can see that as Gianpietro has been passed by Zoiga, as now he's falling down the order a little bit, and he's losing out quite a bit here, and I'm wondering if there's some damage to the car. As we look a little bit further up here, and we can see there's the case of Ben Walker versus Kevin, well, it's US Field here, and also we've got Kevin Harakkonen who's dropped down the order somewhat, but right now it's Field and Walker as they make their way, and Field has gained immeasurably here, and I think there's been an incident between Harakkonen and Walker, and we haven't seen it on camera as they make their way into the bus stop chicane for the first time of asking, and you can see Junior's going to go round the outside, but he's too deep on the brakes. He's still able to gain one place, but he went too deep to make it 2 there, but it was a very bold move, and Dave Jr. is up into P2 come the end of the first lap. It has been a dramatic opening lap, but Junior is on a charge here and looking opportunity as Walker has dropped down to P3, but he's not out of it yet, as we see Richard Jebb has now got Ethan Faulkner behind him as they all make their way out of turn 1 and head down towards Rouge and Radion once again. So after one lap, it is Vesfield leading ahead of Dave Jr., followed by Ben Walker in P3. Then it's Richard Jepp in P4, followed by Ethan Faulkner in P5. We then got a bit of space to Chris Zoiga in P6, who's 1.4 seconds behind, who's being chased by Ugo Gianpietro as they go wide, and we can see meanwhile ahead. Sorry to interrupt that, folks. We've got Richard Jepp battling with Ethan Faulkner in the run down the Kimmel Straight here, and in the long run down towards the Lecom, you can see how it's the case that right now Richard Jepp just simply having to give way here. I think he's thinking about the longer race distance rather than battling early as they make their way through, but Faulkner up into P4 and continuing the crusade. As we look a little bit further down the order, I can tell you that Zoiga right now in that P6 position is under increasing pressure from Gianpietro, as we can see that behind him we've got Romain Delcom in P8. He's just gained a position, I believe, on what is Jonathan Atkinson, who's in P9, and then we've got Nicholas Tardioli, who's falling down the order. He was in P10. In fact, it was Tardioli who made the mistake of dropping places left, right and centre. He's down to P12 as we see Volkowski is in P10 right now, and Kevin Harakkonen, we're not sure what happened to the Intruder Racing team driver, but we believe there may have been an incident between himself and also what was at the time, it was a case of Ben Walker going through the Stavlo corners. We will find out for you as soon as possible with regards to that, folks, as to what's happened, but right now it is the case that Kevin Harakkonen has got Nicholas Tardioli all over the back of him. It's the Valkyrie Esport driver hunting the back and the Intruder Racing team drivers, they make their way in towards turns 13 and 14, and as they come through the right into left sequence here, you can see the difference in the cars, and I think Harakkonen's got significant damage on that car because he seems to be struggling to make it across the apex as they now come into Stavlo once again, and then out towards Stavlo 2 they come, but you can see as they make their way out of turn at number 15 into 16 that Harakkonen seems to have already come alive there, as we know that Velkoski goes wide, and this could be Harakkonen's chance at a potential move as they go charging down towards what is Blanchimont and then in towards the bus stop, and as he continues to charge down towards the corner here, will there be a potential move, or will it be the case that he's going to have to wait? I think he's going to be looking for it, but it's going to be a bit of a lunge if he goes for it. He's getting closer and closer here. He's sizing up, and we can see that Velkoski going defensive to the inside, but it's the case Harakkonen much later on the brakes and simply goes round him there with a very brave move. Harakkonen not hanging back, he's back up into the top 10, and now he's on the charges. We've got a car spun there, and that's Brandon Warren who's had a spin at the bus stop. Yeah, I think he's rode too high on the chicane of turn number 19. Well, I'm not sure there was contact with another driver, but Warren jumps down to P23 2021 right now. The last star runners, no retirements in the opening 2 laps. Everyone continues racing as we look back up towards the front, and we can see that Field leading as it currently stands by a significant margin as he makes his way over the top of the hill of Eau-Rouge and Radion here. He's got a gap of 5/10 of a second, and whilst that doesn't sound like much, I can assure you it is a sizable margin when all things are considered right now as they head down towards Les Combes once again. He's got Dave Jr. closing up under braking though, but you can see that's the difference in the performance between the Mercedes and the Porsche as they go charging through the corners once again here and then make their way into the second sector. And this is where the Porsche should really start to fly by comparison as they continue through the second sector, and now it's going to be all about handling, and that's where the Porsche has got the Mercedes cars. You can see that Ben Walker by comparison is closing up considerably here through turn number 10 and heading into X. We believe that closure is only going to continue as we are waiting for the outcome of the incidents that happened on the opening couple of laps here, folks. As soon as I hear anything, I'll let you know, but I do believe there is going to be something with regards to Ben Walker and also Kevin Harrakonnen, because we did see that Harrakonnen disappeared down the order and Walker had lost a huge amount of momentum out of Stavlo too, and that's how Field got back ahead, but we're not sure what specifically happened. We will tell you the story as soon as we know anything else, but right now focusing on our top 4 here, they're all in your camera shot as they go through turns 13 and 14 here, and we're focusing particularly on Ben Walker. He's in P3 right now after starting on pole. I think Walker just settling down into this race 9. He's got a lot of distance to cover here, and it's not going to be won in the opening 15 minutes. Remember, this is a 2-hour race today. We typically watch and casted for you 75-minute races, but here we're a 2-hour race at Spa. So as a result, it's more about the race distance here and having the right strategy and being able to manage that car to its very end. As we can see that Walker really closing up onto the back of Dave Jr. here as they come through Blanchimont. But I think that is the contrast where Dave Jr. just cannot carry as much momentum out of Stavlo 2 by comparison with Walker, and then they've got the long run whereby the McLaren's faster a straight line. It's not quite up to the speed of the AMG Mercedes, but in the slipstream the effect or the positives of that Mercedes are being neutralised to an extent as they come out of the bus stop and head on to another lap here. They head on to lap number 4. It is the case that right now Walker really pushing hard. I can imagine he's going to try for a move versus Junior soon, as we see there that Junior starting to fall a little bit back from Field. The gap right now has opened up to the best part of a second over the course of the last lap as they now make their way down through turn 2 and head up towards Eau-Rouge and Radion once again, and we can see that the gap is now sliding in the favour of Walker, getting ready to make an attempt at a pass here, I think, as they come over the brow of the hill and head towards turn 6 and onto the Kimmel Straight. And we will just stay with these guys a little bit longer before looking further down the field right now as we check in with our race stewards briefing once again, and there's nothing at the moment, but we are hearing incidents being reported right now, so as soon as we hear any of the dramatics we will tell you them. But you can see, look under braking how Walker closes up, and then it starts to really turn into a concertina effect through these corners where there's no way through, as we see Chris Zoiga right now in that P6 position chasing after Richard Jett, and he's really forming the next pack or the next traffic jam, if you will, as they come out to turn 9 and head down towards turn 10 right now. And Zoiga really the best of the rest in the second pack, as we see Richard Jett just ahead of him. He's trying to close up to Richard Jett, of course, to get a shot at P5 as he comes through that right hand corner, but no success so far as he makes his way through X corner. And as he comes through the corner, we can see a good number of our drivers running a little bit wide there. I think they'll all get away with that one for the time being. As we look a little bit further back, we can see Kevin Harrakonnen right now in that P10 position, making the recovery drive as it currently stands, but he is 2 seconds off of Jonathan Atkinson up in P9. But behind him, meanwhile, I can tell you that Nicholas Tardioli here under an increasing amount of pressure from Velkoski, Ingo Herman, and also Tony Hill, who's chasing after him right now. And we can see it is a huge pack of drivers as we ride on board and look back here from Tardioli's car. And whilst they look small in the distance, you can see under braking how they all come together here, and Voss all the way down in P15 we should say, after that disastrous opening lap, and Crew Camp behind him as well. Those two really having to make recovery drives right now as we stay with Tardioli as he goes through what is the first part of Stavlo here, and you can see how Tony Hill under increasing pressure. I think Tony Hill's moved out the way. He's lifted off completely. There's something that's gone wrong with the car, or he's just lifted off, and as a result he's let a good number of drives through. He's let Crew Camp through, but Gareth Mills is now going to come through to take the position of it. It's going to be a drag race between the Audi and the Ferrari as they head up towards Blanchimont here, but I think Hill trying to let the faster drives through of Crew Camp and Voss cost himself way too much momentum, and Mills is now up into P16 as they make their way through Blanchimont. He rides a little high on the apex curb here. Will we see Hill go for a move on the inside in towards bus stop? We see that Mills defends it in the centre of the road here, and he's just parking the car in the centre to send the message to Hill, look, you've given me the place and I'm going to take it for you. And GM Racing is now up into P16 and continuing on its way as they make their way onto another lap here, and we look back up to P7 man GM Pietro as we can see him making his way right now after Chris Sawyer, but he's lost lost out a bit on the previous lap. In fact, Zoiga now the best part of 1 second ahead, as I can tell that GM Pietro on that lap lost a further 2 seconds. No, not 2 seconds, my apologies, 2 tenths on our P6 man. But as they make their way through Uruge and Radion here, we can see that Delcom and Atkinson close to the back of what is GM Pietro here. We see the train making their way onto the Kimmel Straight. And then the rear view picture, that's Harrakonen there, continuing his recovery drive as they all make their way through. And meanwhile, I can tell you that, oh goodness me, what has happened here? I think Walker's got it wrong under braking in towards Lacombe, and as a result, he's now tucked back in behind where's Dave Jr. once again. But I can definitely tell you that the McLaren driver getting very aggressive now and looking for that P2 position. He's not going to stay behind Dave Jr. forever. I think he thinks that his race is now being held up, as we know that Vesfield is now a further 2 seconds up the road from Walker once he's got past Jr. As we hear that Jesse Monrose is into the pits, I believe that might be to repair some damage on the car, as we see Walker now chasing after what is Dave Jr. through Pawn. And we're going to ride on board for a bit here to give you a comparison, and look at how Jr. is really struggling to get the car to turn through the corner, whereas with Walker it's the case he's got so much turn, he's having to settle the car down here. And I think you can tell as a result how much it will mean to Walker to get back past. I think he feels he's definitely got the pace here to chase after the leader, if only he can find his way past the very bulky and resilient Mercedes ahead of him. And that's the name of the game, of course, but we still do have the best part of an hour and 50 minutes. We've only spent 10 minutes racing so far, ladies and gentlemen, and plenty of dramatics as we see as they make their way through Stavlo number 2. You can see how Walker has the better run out of the corner there and is able to carry a greater momentum. But as soon as we get onto the straight, look at the Mercedes' V8 engine. It just opens up here, and whilst the McLaren 720 is good on a straight, it's in that slipstream as well. You can see how much he's having to milk the engine in order to get close. I mean, he's getting closer and closer here. This could be an attempt at a pass. He's going to look to it to the outside. Here is Walker as they come down to turn 19. He's going to be heavy on the brakes. Is he going to go all the way round? He'll be on the inside for 20 if he can make this count, and I think Walker's going to do it as he gets on the inside. Walker is up to P2 with a classic move there, as we see Faulkner is now trying to come through. The other distinct GG driver is trying to follow his teammate through, and Junior goes defensive down into turn 1 on lap number 6 here. They come into that heavy braking zone. Junior literally going as defensive as he can. He's going to make Faulkner go all the way round, and you can see that Faulkner takes to the riding curb there. He takes to the yellow sausage curb and loses a little bit of momentum right now. But as we ride on board here with Faulkner, who's chasing after Dave Jr., we'll see now as they make their way through Uruge and Radion here how much of a contrast that Ferrari will be versus the Mercedes. It can carry so much more momentum. Dave Jr.'s got it wrong. He's gone off the circuit and he's into the wall. Junior is into the wall coming out of Uruge and Radion, and that Mercedes is now going to have to limp back to the pits. That's a disaster for the American, who was doing so well to hold off the charging pack. As we can see, he now returns to the circuit on the Kimmel Straight, having dropped down to P10. But this is absolutely in tatters as we see more cars coming through the field. Tardioli here in P11. Oh my goodness me, we're only 12 and a half minutes in and the drama is happening already, as Junior has now got a car he's got to limp home with. And the big question at this point will be, what is going to happen between Field and our chasing man Walker? The gap now is 2.5 seconds, as we see we've got 4 cars into the pits here. We've got Mills, Crewcamp, Wilcox and Monrose. I'm not 100% sure why we've got so many cars in the pits. It's probably to repair damage on the cars right now. But we can see that Field are leading, and Walker is really the prime person to be chased after getting the move done on Dave Jr. in that P2 position. But watch out for Ethan Faulkner, of course, who will love an opportunity. This will be a distinct double podium if they're able to pull it together. But we've got a long way of racing to go yet, and anything can happen. As we look back to our P5 man right now, who is still chasing after Richard Jebb, and I can see that as they make their way out of turn at 14 and in towards Stavlo here, look at the pack of cars. Firstly, 2 hungry Porsches and an even more ravenous Bentley behind. They're all looking to find a way past Chris Zoiga here, the Swiss driver right now, doing everything he needs to in that P5 position. And the CHF Motorsport team will be egging him on, saying, come on, just pull a little bit more of a gap. But you can see how you've got the 2 Valkyrie Esport drivers, GM Pietro and Romain Delcom, in P6 and P7 respectively, who lose out a bit through the Stavlo corners there. And I think it is the case that GM Pietro and Delcom have really tuned their car for sectors 1 and 2. We can see how Zoiga just seems so comfortable in the final sectors. We see there it's the case that Delcom goes very deep through what is turn number 19, and as a result he loses the momentum here. And Atkinson, he's going to have the run. Will he be able to get it done as they make their way then down towards what is turn number 1? Here they head towards the source. It's Atkinson on the outside, it's Delcom on the inside. Delcom defends. Atkinson looks at the cutback here for the apex, but Delcom parks on the apex there as he's got every right to do so, and the OTL Racing driver will have to carry on. All the same, now in P8, of course, with everything that's happened and the drama of Dave Jr. on the previous lap, but we can see that right now it's the case that Atkinson really wanting to find a way past the Porsche. He's up into P8. How much higher can he go? That is the big question here, and he will want to end on a high. As we see that we've got Gareth Mills moving out the way there. What with the fact that he's just come out the pits, and as they come all charging down towards turn number 7 in towards Lecom, we've got Atkinson once again looking for the move. He's going to try and go around the outside of Delcom, but as they go into left-hander of 8, it's the case that Atkinson has to tuck in behind. Delcom just simply has the better flow through the corner there as they make the way out to 9 and head down towards turn number 10, but Atkinson looking very strong at this point in the race, and we can see that with Delcom having that mistake, it's now opened up the opportunity for Gianpietro to go hunting after what is Romain Delcom as they come through turn number 11 once again. You can see that Gianpietro just going a little bit wide there as they go charging down towards Pouon, and it's Chris Zoiger who's having to do all of the hard work of trying to find a way to defend against the charging Frenchman, the charging Belgian as they come down through the corners, and we can see that Valkyrie Esport will really want Gianpietro to get into that top 5 position right now. They'll feel he's got the pace to do it, but will he be able to do it? That is the big question as they make their way through turns 13 and 14 for another time of asking here. And as we check in with race control here, I can tell you that it's the case that a warning has been issued to car number 222, and that is the car of, as we check our race briefing notes here, it is the car of Mathis Voss for aggressive driving, failing to leave space for car number 25 on the opening lap. Now, who is car number 25? Yes, that's Chris Zoiger. So Voss, who's dropped down the order, has got a warning against his name right now, and that will mean he's more prone to a potential penalty if he repeats aggressive driving later on in the race. But otherwise, everything else right now, we are waiting. We've got a 10-second penalty being reported here, and that is for what is car number 233, and that, ladies and gentlemen, car 233 is Brandon Warren with a 10-second penalty for avoidable contact with car number 222, and that is Mathis Voss, and that was on lap number 2, and that was between them, of course, into what was the last corner. So that's why we saw Warren rotated sideways there at turn 19. It wasn't a spin then, it was the contact between the two of them by the sounds of things. But Warren right now having his day go from good to average to disastrous right now, as that's going to put him even further down when he does take his pit stop. But still, he's got a long way to go for that pit stop, and right now he's chasing after Tony Hill. But meanwhile, up front, I can tell you that Field is 2 seconds ahead of Walker as it currently stands, and Faulkner is a further half a second back on his distinct GG teammate as they go charging in towards Lecom once again. Now the question is here, of course, what do you do in this situation? Well, we'll take a look in a second, because right now I can see that Atkinson has managed to get past what looks to be Delcom there into the braking zone to Lecom. They go as a slipstream run, fell on the Kennel Straight, and as a result, Atkinson, we just caught it, has managed to get himself up into P6, and he's been waiting that for some time, and now it is the case that will Atkinson be able to hold on through Sector 2, the sector where the Bentley will struggle compared to that Porsche? Can he hold off the charge of Delcom? But even more importantly, can this man right here, Kevin Harikonen, find a way to now get past Delcom as they make their way into Ix? And we ride on board with the Frenchman from the Intruder Racing team as he goes hunting down P7 and P6 here, and as he comes out of Ix, you're going to see, being a little bit further back here, he's not as confined in terms of his choice of race line or the amount of momentum he can take for the corners, and that's the thing that Delcom, I think, has to figure out right now. How can he give himself good space in order to be able to get the best possible run out of certain corners, and therefore not be compromised on the exit of the faster corners, the medium sweepers such as turns 13 and 14 here, where we know that Delcom is the stronger of the two drivers versus Atkinson, simply because he has the better rotation in the car. We can see that Harikonen really closing up right now, and I think this is what Harikonen's been doing. He's been watching both drivers for the best part of the last 2 to 3 laps. So he gets a little bit wrong there at Stavlo as he makes his way through turn 16 once again here, but you can see how Delcom managed to take a wide line there and almost incurring the wrath of the track limit stewards there as he makes his way now down towards Blanchimont once again, and Harikonen can sit back right now and relax this. He's only 4/10 of the Porsche in front of him, and he can keep applying that pressure, and that's the thing I think that's getting to Delcom, is the fact he's finally been passed by the Bentley, and now he's got a Ferrari that is looking to be right up there. It was P3 in qualifying, of course, was Harikonen's Ferrari, but will it be the case that Harikonen can find a quick way through? As we jump to the helicam right now, and they make their way through a bus stop once again, and you can see how Harikonen is taking a much more smooth lines by comparison with Delcom, who seems to be wrestling with keeping the car close to the back of Atkinson, and that's his safety now. I think he's worried about the Ferrari, and you can see under braking, look once again how Harikonen just has so much more Excuse me there, folks. He's just so much more boisterous on the brakes in terms of being able to come heavy on the brakes and really close up and utilising the performance of that Ferrari right now as they make their way up towards the Rouge Radion. And again, we'll see it here in the fact as they make their way up the hill. You can see the confidence that Harricone takes. So he goes a little bit wide through turn 4 there by comparison with Delcom, and that does cost him the run. But as they now come down onto the Kemmel Straight here, it is one of those situations, I think, where the gap between these guys is neutralised for the time being. But it'll be interesting to see how things translate a bit later on as we see Richard Jep down in this P9 position. And we've got a drive-through penalty for Mathis Voss as well for an unsafe rejoin on lap number 5 for running wide on the exit of turn 15. So that would have been the exit of Stavlo 1 and rejoin the circuit and making side-to-side contact with the number 519 car. And that's the car of Crewcamp who's in the pits. And I think that explains it as Crewcamp is retired. I think it's the case that both Crewcamp and Wilcox have had to retire the car, or they're doing major repair work as they are both stuck in the pits. So I think we've now only got the best part of 19 drivers, and that is a disastrous end to the season if it is the case for both Crewcamp and Wilcox. Our first 2 retirements of the race tonight, as we see that field is being reeled in by Walker and Faulkner right now. That gap has actually come down by a second almost over the last couple of laps, and to explain why, ladies and gentlemen, particularly in the last lap, field a 2:19.626, Walker meanwhile a 2:18.8, and Faulkner a 2:18.798. The distinct GG drives almost a second faster on that lap alone, and I think it is the case that field has just let a little bit of pressure perhaps gets him right now. He's running a good race out front, but he's still got an hour and 40 minutes to go. He's still got 100 minutes racing to go here. He needs to find a smooth room, and perhaps he's just not quite there right now, as we know that Richard Jep has dropped down the order unexpectedly and has resulted down in P9. And again, Jep will now be looking to try and find a way back into the race in action. I'm sure he will be able to find it, but he's a little way down the order right now, and we'll have to find it. After being up in that P5 position for so long, just one mistake from the Harwin Racing driver, and he's got to go racing once again to find his way back up. But we look a little further down, and we can see that after recovering the car after a disastrous start, Loisinger right now in P16. He's 7.2 seconds behind P15 man, who you're looking at, and that's the ULAGS driver of Tony Hill, who in turn is chased after Brandon Warren, who is 4.8 seconds up the road in P14. That has a 10-second time penalty that he will need to serve in the pits. Now we're checking in with you guys and girls at the chat right now, and we can see there from Tonganda on the YouTube channel, seen quite a few AMGs bottom out of Radion. Shame about that. Shaping up for a good scrap. Indeed, that was very unfortunate, particularly for Dave Jr. That was a disaster for what was looking to be a very strong performance. I can tell you, however, the positive, Jr. has got their car repaired, but he is a lap down on the field right now, the American. So this is more about consistency, but remember, we've got so much time in this race still to go, and that's where you've got to stay in the race if you can. If the car's completely knocked out, that is the case that you got to retire. But for Junior right now, he'll be thinking, I can know in the centre of his mind right now, he'll be thinking to himself, right, it hasn't worked out. We know we've got one of the strongest paces for the race out of the circuit. I can get myself back into this race, but I've got to do it over the course of the next hour and 40 minutes. It's not going to be about the next 10 minutes, and that's what you've got to do. In these races, you've got to mentally still yourself. In a 75-minute race, once you've had an instant after the opening 20 minutes, it can feel as though you're never going to get the race back. But in a 2-hour race, you'll definitely find a way to get back into that race if you've got the mindset and the pace to do it. And I believe that Junior will come back through the field. I predict right now, ladies and gentlemen, we could see Junior come back towards the top 10 by the end of this one. We'll wait and see, of course, and see if that prediction comes true. But meanwhile, what I can tell you is that with all our talk about Dave Jr., Atkinson has not been able to break away from Delcom. And in fact, Harricone has dropped off the back of Delcom somewhat. But Atkinson is slowly reeling in what is Gian Pietro ahead of him. So the Valkyrie Esports drivers right now, sandwiching Jonathan Atkinson, the OTL Racing driver here, and the Bentley proving quite difficult for what is Delcom to find a way through as we look back from Atkinson's car right now as they come out of Stavlo 2 and head up towards Blanchimont. And as they make their way through Blanchimont corner here, you can see once again how it's the case that Atkinson cannot take as smooth a line through there as we see by the looks of things. It is going to be an attempt at a pass here by what is Delcom. He's trying to look around the outside into 19, but he wasn't close enough to affect it. I think what Delcom is trying to do is trying to play some mind games here versus Atkinson, and he's trying to get Atkinson to make a mistake. So you can see how it's the case that Delcom now really coming to life right now. The two drivers being inseparable in terms of lap times. It's mid 2:19 to the pair of them, but as they make their way through the source, look at the language of what is Delcom's car. He's saying to Atkinson right now, I'm coming for that place. I know where to get you now. I know I can get you back. And look how close he is to the back of what is Atkinson's car as they make their way here up through Rouge and Radion. And he's all over the back of Atkinson. He's having to wrestle with the dirty air off the back of that Bentley. As they come over the hill, this is where the Bentley just starts to pull away a little bit and that gap starts to open up. And that's where Delcom needs to be. He needs to be so tight to the backside of Atkinson's Bentley. So that way when they get into the heavy braking zone, such as that one for Lecom, which is coming up right now into turn 7 here, he can be that threat. And as soon as they start going through sector 2, this is where the Porsche really shines for Delcom. And that's what he'll need to do. He'll need to be so close that by the time they get down to, say, turn 13 coming out of Podium, he can potentially go for that move. But Atkinson will know this. He's been in that situation chased after Delcom only laps before, and he'll know as well that Delcom will be looking to use sector 2 as the launch pad for his potential attack. Now I can tell you that with regards to track temperature and weather conditions, we've still got clouds and sunshine right now, ladies and gentlemen, and track temperature is holding a mildly warm 28 degrees centigrade as we see them make their way down through Podium. So right now they haven't got anything to worry about or to react to in terms of conditions. We see there that Delcom going a little bit wide out of Podium. Now, I think that may be as well, just to get himself into some clear air coming out of the corner, perhaps to cool down the brakes and those tyre temperatures a little bit, because running so close to the back of Atkinson's car right now, you will be getting that dirty air, that warm air coming off the back of the Bentley, and that is going to cost him some temperature saving on the tyres. And if those tyre temperatures get too high, we'll start to see additional graining effects coming apart from the standard wear here. And that's the thing that Delcom's got to be aware of, the fact that when he goes for it, he's going to have to be so close to the back of Atkinson that if he's there for too long and he can't make it work, he's at risk of damaging the tyres beyond a point of return. And if he can't recover the tyres, then that's going to see him fall back towards Harakona, who's only 1.5 seconds back. And here is Kevin Harakona. He has not fallen out of this. He did drop back to 2 seconds behind a couple of laps ago, but he is now starting to build it back up once again, and he is approximately, by looks of things, a second a lap slow. On that last lap, he was a second lap slow, but I think Harakona here may be playing the long game. He may be doing a bit of fuel management here and simply hanging on to the back of Delcom and Atkinson and watching for them to battle one another. That last lap, a 2:19.617 from Harakona. It was 2 tenths faster than Delcom's lap by comparison. So we are seeing the Ferrari driver right now just simply there, watching, waiting for the opportunity to strike or waiting to pounce through the strategy element, as we've still got the best part of 95 minutes of racing to go. So as a result, Harakona will come back into this, that I'm sure. As I can tell you, meanwhile, it is the case that Faulkner's got past what is Walker, and he's going to go for the move here versus Field as the cameraman pans round, and it is the case that Field backing out of it there, coming out of what is the Kemmel straight into Lecom, and we just call that in time, but Faulkner there with a huge amount of momentum, and he's got past Field. Now, well, given the fact that Walker has been passed by Faulkner, I would say that was most likely teamwork there for Faulkner to come through, and we did see that in the Nürburgring, the fact that the two of them changed places, and he did discuss it, did Walker, in his post-race interview about the two of them changing places, but Faulkner, as a result of getting into P2, has sprung the attack to Field. I think Field had a poor run out of what was Rouge Radion, and his last lap is telling of this, because Field's last lap, we're looking at Field right now, he's in the centre of this pack of 3 cars. The Porsche driver, it was a 2:20.1 his last lap, whereas Faulkner's lap was a 2:19.473, and Walker's by comparison was a 2:11.0. So I think for Faulkner, it's the case he's had the strongest lap of the 3 of them. I think Walker probably backed off to let Faulkner through at some point on the previous lap, but Field had a disastrous lap by comparison, and now you can see as a result of that, look at what Walker's now able to do. You can see he's getting closer and closer to the back of the Porsche driver right now, and the McLaren driver really working with his teammates to his advantage here, and I think that the Briton and the Irishman could spring a 1-2 here if they're able to get it right. We've still got a long distance to go, of course, but you can see how Field just does not seem to be comfortable. And this is really a shock term of form right now. That Porsche does not look happy in terms of the way it's rotating through the corners. It looks as though Field just cannot seem to get the right balance right now. It was looking strong in qualifying, but as they make their way out of Blanchimont here, you can see Walker getting closer and closer. He's only a 10th off it. He's going to look around the outside here into the braking zone. He goes way too deep and locks the brakes up. A bit too much enthusiasm there from Walker as he comes through bus stop, but you can see all intentions are clear. Walker really wants that place, but there it was a mistake, and as a result, he's now got to go hunting once again, and now the gap between him and the guys in front has gone down from a 10th of a second all the way up to 3 seconds. So Walker's now got a sizable gap to reclose. As we see Zoiga here in P4, he's ahead of GM Pietro, and he's got, well, it is the case that right now Atkinson in that P6 position has still got Delcom all over the back of him, but Delcom just cannot find a way past as they make their way out of the source once again here, and we look backwards on the Bentley, and you can see as soon as they get into approximately 4th and 5th gear here, it's just where the Bentley's got a little bit more grunt, but as they make their way through Rouge Radion here, this is is where Delcom will want to be so close, but he has to back off slightly, just loses out as they make their way over the brow of the hill and onto the kibble straight through turn 6 here. And you can see this is where Delcom loses the time, and he needs to be just 1/10 closer. He wants to be just a 10th closer, and then he will have the ability to potentially go for the move under braking into late combat. Right now he's not close enough, and you can see Atkinson can take those smoother lines, he can take those more relaxed lines through sector 2 here because he doesn't have the pressure. He can protect the car a little bit more, and that's I think what Delcom's struggling with. I think he's got to either decide he's got to attack relentlessly for a couple of laps, or he's got to instead start protecting the car himself, because right now he's balancing between the two of them. I don't think this balancing act is working out for Delcom as they make their way through X once again. And as they make their way around through turn number 11 and down towards 12, we can see a bit further down the order right now that Kevin Harikonen still 2.7 seconds back and having a difficult last lap of 2:20.5. So I think Harikonen starting to hit a little bit of a cliff in terms of the consistency of the laps and hold on to that P8 position it currently stands. Meanwhile, further down, I can tell you that we've got Richard Jebb in P9. He is gradually being closed up by Nicholas Tardioli. You can see at the rear of your camera there, the Harwin Racing driver in the centre of our camera being pursued by the Valkyrie Esports driver as they make their way into his turns 13 and 14. And it is the case for Richard Jebb. He is slowly being reeled in. He was 3/10 slower than Tardioli, who's behind him on the previous lap. Here's Tardioli at the centre of your camera now. The Frenchman making his way through turn at 14. And as they head down towards Stavlo, once again here, I think Tardioli will be in striking distance within the next 5 to 6 laps if Jebb does not improve. But right now, all signs are pointing towards Jebb being reeled in here as they make their way through the Stavlo complex. And out through Stavlo 2 they come. And this is where Tardioli will fall back a little bit versus the Mercedes power. But I can imagine as well for the Mercedes drivers, they may be doing a little bit of engine mapping to save fuel simply because of the length of the race here, and that may be a bit of a sticking point with regards to fuel. But right now, looking back up in front, I can tell you after passing Field, Faulkner is flying. Field on that last lap, a 2:20.3. Faulkner by comparison, a 2:19.3. Faulkner is on a charge. He's a second faster than the Swiss behind him right now. The Irishman is letting it all go here. He's just going for it. It's beautiful to see as he makes his way through Rouge and Radion. He's running away, and then the question will be, of course, what can his teammate Ben Walker do, the Briton in the McLaren 720S? He would love a shot at taking on Field here. He's 2 seconds back right now. He's already closed down a second over the last lap, and he's continuing to do so right now at astronomical pace. The Distinct GG team are flying right now. As we look a bit further back, we can see that Chris Zeuger, meanwhile, in P6, the Swiss driver from CHF Motorsport, trying to close up to the leaders. He's got a 1.2 second gap to GM Pietro behind, but there's no change right now, and he's not pulling away at a rapid rate. He gained a 10th over GM Pietro on the last lap, but it's not enough in order to be able to charge away. But Zeuger, I can tell you, was a 10th faster than Ben Walker here, so we may see Zeuger start to close up to our P3 man. We will have to wait and see as we look a little bit further down that order once again. And meanwhile in P13 we can see Brandon Warren here making his way through Rouge and Radion. As we check in with the stewards here, and there's no further action on a number of incidents between drivers right now, so as a result we're not seeing anything else being reported as things currently stand. As we check in with you guys and girls in the chat right now, and from Tom Gander as well, talking about, I believe he'll be talking about Dave Jr., who is, of course, as we mentioned earlier, a lap down right now on the race leaders and continue to race around. Tom Gander saying the reason that Dave Jr. is still out there is because he loves driving Spa, and who doesn't? I agree with you, Spa, a fantastic circuit, and indeed I think he's enjoying the experience as much as he is chasing down potential positions towards the end of the race. But right now, focusing back on some closer action out on circuit and rather than long term looking at the short term, we've got Ben Walker here who is continuing to push after Field, and I can tell you right now on this lap alone, Walker so far before we get through the completion of Blanchimont here has already closed down the best part of almost a second on Field. In fact, Field is struggling through Blanchimont. He's just lost a further 3 attempts as Walker is charging, and I do wonder whether Field's nursing a problem on that car, or alternatively he's got a master stroker strategy hidden up his sleeve, because it does look as though Field is really having difficulty. As well on that lap alone, Ben Walker a 2:19.5, Field a 2:20.7. That was 1.2 seconds just stripped like that out of the Swiss's lead as they make their way out of the source once more. And we look a bit further down, we can see that Zeuger meanwhile chasing after these guys, and he lost 3 tenths on that lap. As again, well, it's a same old story with regards to Atkinson versus Delcom as we ride on board here with Delcom, who's chasing after Atkinson, of course, as they make their way through 2 and head into Rouge and Rally, and we ride on board here, and this is a thrilling sequence. Oh goodness me, and it looks as though Delcom, what a catch on the car there. And I was just going to say it was going to be thrilling going through the corner. Well, it was more than thrilling, that was absolutely nerve biting. But I can imagine that Delcom right now probably plays cricket or something in his spare time, because that was a fantastic fantastic catch and just simply feeling the rear of the car slide out through Rouge and through turn 4 there. That could have been fatal. That could have been equivalent of what we saw happen to Dave Jr. only about 6 to 7 laps to go, but Delcom catching the car, and that's why Valkyrie Esport love having him as a driver. I can tell you that, because that was a phenomenal catch of the car. He's lost in time, of course, but right now I think Harikonen behind him will even be begrudgingly saying, well, that's a fair catch. I do imagine how difficult you're going to be past right now. As you see, Harikonen is now only 8 tenths of a second behind on Delcom as they make their way through turn number 11 once again, and as they come charging down towards what is Pouhon corner for the 15th time of asking, my bets will be that Harikonen is probably not going to close up too rapidly right now unless Delcom has taken a huge chunk out of his tyres, particularly perhaps caused a flat spot on one of the tyres there, what with the skid and having to get the car back under control. But we will wait and see as they make their way through turns at 13 and 14, the medium speed chicane, of course. As they come through here, you can see that Harikonen is continuing to press on, but Harikonen is arresting, I think, his lap time inconsistency, because that last lap was a 2:19.7, and this is looking smooth. In fact, he is taking some time out of the Porsche ahead of him right now. He's got that gap down by a further 3 tenths through that chicane alone. As they fly out here through Stavlo, you can see he is starting to close up a little bit more here. He may be within striking distance come the next lap as they make their way in towards Blanchimont here. And for Harikonen, it's going to be all about just simply managing those lap times. If he can do that afterwards, a strong start and of course a strong qualifying session, then he can get himself back into the race for that podium. Because right now he's in P8, but he'll want to be in that top 5 come the end of it as he comes into the braking zone for bus stop. And you can see actually how aggressive under braking it was, and we have seen this from Harikonen time and time again. He just seems to have this ability to carry so much depth on the brakes into those heavy braking zones, and there he has closed up so much in fact versus Delcom that as a result, well, of course Delcom having that incident on the starter lap, of course, where he caught the car through Rouge. It's now as they make their way out to turn at number 1 here, we can see how Harikonen continues to charge. We jump on board, of course, with the Ferrari driver, but it's as they come out of La Source, you can see how Delcom has opened that gap up by a further 2 tenths. I think it's for Harikonen, it's the second half of Sector 2 and Sector 3 where that Ferrari is stronger, but as they make their way over the hill, he runs a little bit wide there, as we see Delcom also running wide. Both of them now I think will be subject to a track limits warning, and that's going to be why they're early ones. They haven't got too many warnings so far, but as they make their way down towards what is the Lecom entrance here, we can see there's Harikonen looking to the outside, Delcom on the inside. It's a battle under braking, Porsche versus Ferrari. The Ferrari goes around the outside to inside here, and they come through turn 8. There's a little bit of contact there, and Delcom's knocked a tiny bit wide as they come through turn number 9, but racing respect shown here, and it is the case that Harakonen's managed to get ahead with a tiny bump, and I do wonder right now whether a word's going to be going to the stewards from Delcom and the team to say that there was contact for that pass, but it was a very closely lit pass all the same. And as they come down here through X corner once again, you can see that Delcom will not be giving this up so easily as they make their way down towards Pouhon corner. That's Jesse Monroe, you can see behind a lap down in P19, so not battling for the position here with these guys, but as they make their way through Pouhon, you can see that Harakonen's got it wrong through Pouhon. In fact, it's the case that Delcom's really close behind right now. He's almost there. He's literally touching the back of the car as they come down into 13, and Delcom's going to try and sweep round the outside. He's trying to turn it as tight as possible here to take away any possible space, but it's the case that Harikonen, just a slight tap between the two of them and he goes wide. The two of them now having made contact twice by the looks of things, unless that was a small mistake from Harikonen. It was so close, infinitesimal to tell right now, but I believe our stewards have access to a lot more cameras than we do as they make their way through Stabler, and Harikonen has lost the place he gained, but it all returns to how it was, and it's now a 1.4 second gap that Harikonen has to close down in the hunt for P7, but Delcom definitely falling back into the clutches of Harikonen and not moving forward. He's released Atkinson effectively, and Jonathan Atkinson, I can tell you now, in P6 is enjoying one of the best races of his season as he makes his way through the bus stop chicane. He's now hunting down Ugo Gianpietro, and to give you a comparison here in terms of lap times between the two of them, that last lap for Gianpietro a 2:19.7, for Atkinson a 2:20.6. So I do think the Bentley driver right now is starting to come to the end of the ultimate pace, or perhaps he just made a mistake on that lap, but he does seem to be calming it down a little bit. And perhaps looking more towards the strategy here and noticing how Delcom had that incident, perhaps he's thinking that if he just stays there a little bit behind Gianpietro, he'll see that the Porsche driver ahead of him makes a mistake or something goes wrong in the near future. But meanwhile, I can tell you that Field versus Walker once again, of course, Walker running wide, and as they make their way down towards Lecom, Field defends the inside, Walker looks to the outside, but then Field pops back onto the racing line with Walker not close enough here, and it is the case that right now for that McLaren driver, he's recovered what was a 3-second deficit after locking up into the bus stop chicane chicane. Only 3 laps to go, and as they now come out of turn 9 and head down towards Brussels corner at turn 10 here, you can see how much this means to Walker. He wants that P2. He wants that P1, P2 for the Stint GG. We have still got, of course, ladies and gentlemen, an hour and 22 minutes of racing to go, but it's been exciting stuff so far, and it's definitely telling when you've got Walker and Faulkner with the ultimate opportunity here to end their season on the ultimate high, then want every single chance to take a place of a field. As we see that Walker gets it a bit deep through Paul, and he's pushing so hard in that dirty air. There was just a lock up of the brakes light, and he had to release the car, otherwise it would have just simply gone even further out of Podium corner. And once the car goes, you do not want to be in the car, because it's just literally a train and you're just riding it. You have no control of it as they make their way through. And I see there's a drive-through penalty for Dave Jr., and I'm not sure why there's been a drive-through penalty for Dave Jr. We'll find out for you very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. But staying with the racing right now, you can see that Walker having the better run through Stavelo 1 versus Field, and Field going a bit wide there out of Stavelo 2. And as they charge up towards what is Blanchimont once again, and we look to the exterior cameras, it will be the case that Walker is going to look for the potential move here in towards Buster. He's getting closer and closer, and he's nipping onto the back through turn 18 here. We can see that Field is really struggling for speed as they head into the braking zone for turn 19. Into the braking zone they come, and it'll be Walker this time. So now the brakes right there side by side, but Field is able to carry the momentum through and retains the place for now. But I think it is the case that for Walker, it's going to be only delaying the inevitable in his mind. He wants that place, and he's going to find a way to get it. But where's he going to get it? That's the question. Or will Field be able to create what is the unstoppable barrier here and prevent that McLaren from coming through and run off into distance? Faulkner, meanwhile, I can tell you, is 4 seconds up the road from these guys as they make their way out of the source and through turn 2 and head towards Rouge and Blanchimont. But we can see right now as we look back from the Porsche of Yves Field as they come through the left into right combination of Rouge, and you watch this McLaren, it's going to get so close here, and you can hear how Field is having to lift. He is struggling through turns 3 to 5 there, and as a result we can see as they make their way down towards what is Lake Om and the helicopter, we note that Walker has got himself past, and he's got himself ahead into the braking zone here. And as they come down into turn number 7, I think Walker has finally got the move done, although Field is right there with him for the time being, and through sector 2 they go here. And the question will be, of course, will there be a chance for Field to come back at this point in the race, or will he have to wait? But the language of that Porsche is telling. It's telling in sector 1, it just cannot seem to carry the speed through Rouge and Raidillon by comparison with Walker's McLaren, and that's where it was all lost, because he had to lift through turn number 4. And as they make their way through X corner here, Walker is starting to eke out a little bit of a gap as they come charging down towards turn number 12, known as Pouron. And as they come through the left-hander here, will Walker be able to get it right this time? I think he has got it right, as there's no sign of Field closing up too much. In fact, Field has dropped back to 7/10 of a second back, so Walker has got the move done here. And we're just checking in with race control as to why there was a drive-through penalty for what was, I believe, Dave Jr. I think that drive-through penalty maybe for what is, we'll find out for you very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. Our apologies for a second. For car number 10, we do not seem to have any sign as to why, so I think that might be a track limits penalty in terms of he's picked up too many track limits warning, has Dave Jr., and that's why he had the drive through there. As we can see right now, Field chasing after Walker, but he's dropped to 1.1 second back, and that is a sign, I think, that Porsche is not in the same race right now as Walker's car. Although do not count Field out, I suspect he may find a way to get himself back into the race a little bit later on, as we continue to see the sparks fly here at the Belgian circuit at Spa-Francorchamps. And behind him, he's now got Chris Zoiga, who is closing up to Field. The gap has come down to 2.4 seconds as they make their way through Buster, and Zoiga is flying to an extent compared to his teammate here on that last lap, a 2:20.4 for the Chris Zoiga. Meanwhile, for his teammate at Field, a 2:21.4. Of course, Field had to do the battling and also made the mistake by the looks of things into what was Rouge and Raidillon. Zoiga really flying right now, but Gianpietro behind him, even faster by 3/10. And this is the man we're looking at right now, Gianpietro, the French driver here, as they make their way out of turns 1 and 2. And I can tell you that the track temperature has dropped by a further degree centigrade now. It's down to 27. So as a result, it does look as though, as they make their way through turns at 3, 4 and 5, and once again, that Gianpietro is really starting to adapt his conditions. And perhaps it could be argued that himself and Zoiga right now, the two strongest Porsche drivers out there, and Field is at risk of being reeled in by these guys as they make their way down towards Lake Om once again for the 19th time of asking. There's still plenty more iterations of the circuit to go through as we look a bit further out. And I can tell you that Delcom versus Harikonen, well, Harikonen Harakkonen has fallen back to 1.6 seconds, and with regards to the contact between Delcom and Harakkonen, I can confirm to the relief of all of us that the two brashes between the two drivers are not being penalised. They are simply being classified as no further action because of the way that the battle played out between the two of them, and that's great to hear, as Kevin Harakkonen will look to go racing against Delcom later on in this one. We still do have 1 hour and 17 minutes of racing. We're almost coming to 75 minutes of racing, folks, but the opening portion of this race has been very close. It has been a nip and tuck throughout, but we've still got plenty more to come. As we take a look through our order, and we look a little bit further down to Richard Jett right now, who is in P9. He's got Nicholas Tardioli chasing after. You can see Tardioli in the rear of the camera there, the Harwin Racing driver. That last lap, a 2:20.5. He's holding off Tardioli for the time being, is Richard Jett in that P9 position, but Tardioli, who was on a 2:21.0 that last lap, so half a second slower, is trying to hunt down an opportunity at getting higher into that top 10. It'd be a great win to end this season for the Valkyrie Esports driver to get another high top 10 finish, or at least get well inside that top 10. And it's Robert Velkoski right now just outside the top 10, hunting it down as the German, the back to motion driver, as he makes his way through turns 13 and 14 here. Now, as the battle's out on the circuit, the closest ones right now, it's really spaced out towards the rear of the field. I can tell you that unfortunately that Brett Crewcamp and the Grumpy Monkey Machine team have had to retire the car. They were not able to get the car recovered after the incident earlier on, which is a shame. And we also do have Jason Wilcox still in the pits. They will not be getting the Metallica racing machine out there anymore. But beyond that, we currently do have the remainder of drivers here, and that is we have 19 drivers racing on the circuit. And here's our last place man, Jesse Monroe, the BSP racing driver, making his way through the bus stop chicane once again, but he is a significant way down on the rest of the field right now. Dave Jr., who is the driver he will be hunting after, of course, making as much recovery drive as he can right now. And the next man on circuit for him is Gareth Mills, who is 53 seconds up the road. And I can tell you that right now, Dave Jr. is driving at approximately 3 to 4 seconds faster than Gareth Mills a lap. The GM Racing driver, of course, who you can see right now on screen, making his way through Stavelot and into Blanchimont, and doing everything he can right now just to simply bring that Audi R8 home. I think that's his target for today. Just simply focus on keeping it clean and consistent, and Mills putting in a solid performance right now and keeping it all together as it currently stands. But as we look back up towards the front of the order, we can see Faulkner right now in that P1 position, holding on to a lead of what is 3.8 seconds ahead of his distinct GG teammate, and that is, of course, Ben Walker, who recently passed Vesfield after multiple times of trying. He finally found a way through the stubborn defence of the Swiss, and we can see the Briton pressing on his way right now. Vesfield, by comparison, 2.7 seconds down on Walker in this P3 position, and continuing to be reeled in by his fellow CHF Motorsport counterpart, who's in P4, and that is Chris Zoiger here. And we can see that Zoiger really on a charge right now. Again, that last lap, he was almost 4 tenths faster than his teammate here, but the driver who is flying by comparison is our P5 man of GM Pietro, Ugo GM Pietro here, the French driver from Valkyrie Esports here, as we ride on board here with the Porsche 911 driver's perspective, and you can see how strong he is coming along in this race right now. He's really unleashing the pace here. And the Porsches, as we've heard down in the paddock through multiple races, are so prickly in terms of performance, in the fact that there's this fine balance between the car wanting to understeer and it wanting to oversteer depending on the state of the tyres here. And GM Pietro has really been protecting those tyres, and it is noticeable in the fact that he has been closing up to Zoiger and also Field over the last few laps quite significantly here. But he has got Jonathan Atkinson behind him, and I can tell you that with regards to the Bentley driver who's in P6 right now, he is closing up on the man who we're watching. But notice as well, watch as they went through the bus stop there and watch into La Source again, you can see how Zoiger's having to take those more sweeping lines, which is giving him better momentum out of the corners, but it's costing him time in between the connector of turn 19 and turn 20, and that's where he loses the time. And La Source here, you can again see how Zoiger's gone deep like a Madison with GM Pietro, and that's all where the time is being gained. GM Pietro just seems to have that greater finesse with regards to the tightness of those apex lines, and that is giving him the ability to close up. Will we see a similar thing here through Rouge and Radial? They cut through the hill once again. Very similar lines here, balancing the car, GM Pietro there, and in fact having a fight with it a little bit as we saw it just started to wobble through turn number 4, but he's been able to keep that, and now he's got the run down the Kemmel Straight, and Zoiger does not have the slipstream of the driver in front of him, but GM Pietro does, and he closes up a further 10th here in that slipstream before going into the heavy braking zone for Lacombe here. And this is where again it's telling, watch the right to left nature of the car, and then Racing coming through turn 9 here, and you can see how Zoya, he just doesn't seem to be able to get the rear rotated as smoothly as by comparison with GM Pietro, and that's just the state of the car at this point in the race. And it may be the case that Zoya is having to protect the tyres as we see GM Pietro goes deep there, but he gets the apex caught up nice and late, and as a result of that, he doesn't lose as much time as he could have there. He did lose 4 attempts overall, but still, he's there, and he's still pursuing after driving front. But it's one little mistake, and you've got all that work to do again, and GM Pietro now knows that to do it, he's got to have the perfect laps, because whilst Zoya is a little bit slower by comparison, he is smooth and consistent, and that's the one thing that GM Pietro cannot afford to lose out in, matching him with consistency as they make their way down towards the fast chicane. And behind as well, Jonathan Atkinson, the Bentley getting larger in the mirror of GM Pietro right now as we see the OTL racing machine make its way through turn 14. And I do wonder whether it's the case that the Porsche driver ahead of him is going to have more eyes in the rearview mirror than he is ahead of him right now as they make their way down through Stavlo and in towards 16 once again here. And we check in with you guys and girls in the chat as well as we do say hello to CP Racing from Driver's Room. That's on the Twitch channel. Good evening to you, and I hope you're enjoying the racing so far and you're doing well today. And to all those of you who've tuned in since the start of the racing, I hope you're all having a fantastic experience watching the racing today, and you've had a great day so far and you're keeping well. That's the most important thing here, as the racing has spaced out a little bit in terms we haven't had any battles recently. But what I can tell you right now, what we lack in battles, we have got battles building up, and we have got the strategy opening up in what is expected to be 6 minutes time when the pit window opens, and there will be questions to be had with regards to how the strategy is going to play out. For all we know, some drivers out here could be trying to get the car to go to the end without needing to refuel significantly, alternatively doing it on a single set of tyres, although I think that would be an absolutely monstrous effort to be able to do it. But we will wait and see how the strategies play out right now. But I do wonder with our P3 man right now of Yves Field, who has got Zoya closing up, and you can see that the gap is really closing Field on that last lap, a 2:21.1. Meanwhile, Zoya behind him 9 tenths faster on a 2:20.2. Something is going wrong with Field. Alternatively, he's trying to do something different on strategy here, because this just does not match up to what we've seen from the Swiss driver throughout the season. He's normally had the race under control, but it's just the lap times that are coming in. They're not indicative of what we've seen from him previously, as we can see that behind Zoya we've got GM Pietro, who's closed up massively over the course of the previous lap, and as a result of that, now the three of them are nose to tail, and Atkinson's also in the rear of the picture, and Atkinson now will be salivating at the prospect of taking on the 3 Porsches right now. He'll love the opportunity, because every time he's had that opportunity in the past, the driver behind him has decided to just merrily take him out, although not intentionally, ladies and gentlemen, but that's what it's probably felt like to Atkinson, is that somebody's just come along and said, nope, you're not permitted to go racing for high points today. Instead, you have to settle for recovering up through the field. But Atkinson right now will be watching this pack with interest and waiting to see how they start to squirrel around one another, as we see Romain Delcon by comparison a further 4 seconds down chasing this pack in P7. He's still got Harikonen behind him, and here is Kevin Harikonen, of course, and these two in the battle for P7 and hoping to close up to the battle for P3 in short order. But right now, as we focus on this battle for P3 and we look back from Field's car, you can see how going through Stavlo 1, for example, it's just not the case he's able to take that tight apex line. And I wonder if there's perhaps something that's gone wrong with one of the tyres on the car, or he's having to nurse perhaps a flat spot on the car, or he's got graining that's really taking control right now because of the fact that Field seems to be so much tight and he's not comfortable. But you can see how at the moment Zoya's having to go into 2 minds. He wants to be in the slipstream of Field's car, but also he's got to be wary of the fact GM Pietro is coming up here. And as they all make their way into the braking zone for turn number 19 here, we see that Zoya versus GM Pietro. GM Pietro ducks out of what is the slipstream there to look for a potential move, but it wasn't going to happen. He was too far back. But again, this is telling. The Valkyrie eSport driver now is really coming to life here, and as he comes across that timing line to complete what is another lap here, that last lap, well, it was practically matching the guys ahead of him, if not faster. But the driver who was much faster than all of them by the best part of 5 to 6 tenths was Jonathan Atkinson. As we can see here, how as they come out of the source here, it's the case that Zoya having the better run by comparison with regards to Field as they all go charging up towards the hill. I do wonder whether there's going to be either a let by here or whether Zoya's just going to simply slipstream his way past as they come through turns 4 and 5 here. And you can again see how Field just struggles over the brow of turn 5 as they come into 6. Zoya's going to go for the move. It's the run down the Kimmel straight here. Zoya on the right hand side, he'll be on the outside versus Field on the inside. The 2 Swiss drivers of the same team go toe to toe. They won't want to take one another out, and you can see that GM Pietro tries to come through, but the door's shut as the move's been made, and Field is now in P4, and this is going to enable his teammate to be able to try and run away away with that lead in P3 as they all come out of turn number 9. And you can already see in terms of the rotation through the corner how Field just that little bit slight is starting to hold Gianpietro and Atkinson up as Zoiga tries to make a breakaway right now. And as they come through in towards X corner here, I do wonder with regards to Atkinson, when will he try to squeeze a move in, if at all? Will he just wait right now because that pit window is going to open? And the thing is as well, with the pit window due to open in 2.5 minutes time, each of these drivers are going to be thinking right now, what if I go for the undercut? What if I pit first and give myself clear space on circuit? And the one driver who could really benefit from that, you're looking at him right now, Atkinson. Alternatively, Delcom and Harikonen down in P7 and P8 are at the rear of your camera shot as they come out of Pouon, and these guys go through turns 13 and 14. Imagine if they pitted a little bit early. They are now 3.5 seconds behind, but you can imagine they would love to close up on this battling, because as they go through these corners, you can see how the gap is continuing to close up on that timing screen on the left hand side. It is the case that right now Delcom is closing up by the best part of a couple of attempts on that, as we look at Field versus Gianpietro as they come out of Stavlo 2 here, and it is the case that Field just not able to get the best run out of the Stavlo corners, but as they go onto the straight here, you could see how Field is continually being reeled in here, and Gianpietro is the closest he's ever been as they come through Blanchimont, and as they make their way down to bust up. Now surely Gianpietro is going to go all the way around the outside here. He's got to try and do something on the brakes because he's losing time, arm over leg. He's going for it around the outside. Can he make it count? Can he keep the car there on the inside into turn 20? He's kept it there, and as they make their way out of the corner, they're still getting trouble with racing room, but Field holds on for another lap, and as a result, Atkinson now is getting closer and closer to the back of Gianpietro, and he's being breathed on so heavily he can feel it around the back of his neck, metaphorically of course. But as they make their way through La Source and we jump to the helicopter, you can see just the fact that Atkinson right now is just enjoying the prospect of being this close, but he won't be able to just sit there for too long, because Delcom in P7 has gained another 8 tenths of a second on this pack as they've been making their way around. But we can see as Gianpietro makes his way over the brow of the hill here, he's getting closer and closer to the back, and as they make their way down towards the Kibble straight here, we can see that it's a potential move, but Phil goes defensive on the inside. Come on, cameraman, spin the camera round, and as they make their way to the braking zone here, will he go for it under braking? He goes to the outside of Gianpietro, and he's gone back to the inside for turn number 8, but he's not able to get it. Phil just placing the car well enough, and I can tell you that Chris Zoiga is already 2 seconds up the road from this battle, and that's why they made the switch when they did, because it's releasing Zoiga, it's giving him the ability to run away with that P3 position for the time being, and as Field holds them up once again here, of course this is all fair, they're allowed to battle like this, and remember that Field, so long as he doesn't get disqualified from the series for anything tonight, for any reason, he will be our championship winner, regardless of whether he finishes in P1 or P21. All he's got to do is bring that car home, and as they make their way through Pouon right now, you can see that our championship leader doing everything he can in order to defend and keep Gianpietro and Atkinson from getting through and harassing his teammate, but it's a potential move down into into turn 13, but it's not to happen as the pit window opens, and now this is critical. Surely one of these guys has got to pit, Gianpietro or Atkinson, one of them has got to pit at the end of this lap. If they do not, then they are going to be compromising their race massively, or will it be Delcom and Harikonen who react? And to give you an idea, you can see them at the rear of the camera shot as we're going through these corners now. That is our P7 and P8 man coming up behind this battle right now. And again, they come out of Stavlo here, and Gianpietro gets closer and closer. He's even closer this time as they make their way through the first part of the left-hand here, through 17, up into turn 18. Will there be a potential move into 18? No, he waits for it, does the Frenchman. But you can see how close Atkinson looks for a move as well, as they all come down into the braking zone here. And as they do, Atkinson's going to try and sweep round the outside, but Gianpietro goes defensive into 19. But you can see how much momentum Atkinson's lost as Field reacts. He comes into the pits, so he plays the undercut to his advantage, and as a result that means Gianpietro has lost out the opportunity to gain momentum, as we see that Atkinson now under pressure from Delcom, who's trying to find a way in, and Delcom's going to try and sweep around the outside here as Atkinson goes defensive, but we know he can be very clever with that Bentley as they come out of the source. You can see a small tap on the back of the Bentley from Delcom, nothing meaningful as they try to make their way around into turn 2 and up towards the Rouge Radio. You can see Delcom getting frustrated here. He wants to get past before they go into Rouge Radio, but he can't find a way through, and just a little twitch at the front end there as they come out of turns 3, 4 and 5, and then it means that as a result Atkinson stays alive in P5 for a little bit longer, and as they make their way down the Kibble straight once again, it starts to space out a little bit right now, but you can see that Delcom really wanted to get ahead of Atkinson with that one opportunity, with Atkinson trying to go for the move on Gianpietro, was more focused on battling with Field, as we see Harikonen gets it slightly wrong on the apex of turn 7, but recovers the car there. But right now, Atkinson sandwiched between the two Valkyrie Esport Porsches here. It must be a very uncomfortable position for the Bentley driver, and I wouldn't want to be in that car right now and to deal with the guy in front and the guy behind. But he's making it work as it currently stands as they make their way down through X corner once again here. And you can see that as they make their way out of the left-hander and down towards Pouan, it is the case that Atkinson doing everything he needs to hold on right now, as we see that Delcom looking for little sniffs of a move on the inside, little dummies of a move where it's not going to be possible, but he's just coming out of the dirty air and saying to Atkinson, hey, look at me, don't worry about your braking point, look for my car instead, it's more important, it's nice and shiny, I want to move on you. But the Belgian not able to get the upper hand on the Brit as they make their way through turns 14 and 15, but you can see this is where the Porsche is so strong in these medium speed sweepers in sector 2, and as they come out towards Stavlo here, Delcom looks for another attempt at a move, but he can't quite find it. They come out of Stavlo 1 in towards Stavlo 2, they go charging around once again here, and as they come out of the second corner in that sequence, it's now onto the long acceleration zone, the long straight, albeit a bit of a curvy one, and as a result now the Bentley can hold on a bit longer. As I can tell you, our race leaders have yet to pit, and it's only Field who's pitted right now. And as they make their way through Blanchimont once again here, we can see how Atkinson continues to close up to the back of Delcom, of GM Pietro, and as they make their way into the braking zone, there's no attempt to move this time, but surely one of them's going to peel off into the pits this time. They're not all going to stay out for another lap, but they all stay out for another lap here, and you do have to wonder whether this is the right move to do this once again, because this battling is only going to cost them, as Chris Zoiger, I can tell you, is coming to the pits, as is Ethan Faulkner, but Ben Walker staying out, and Atkinson goes defensive, heavy defensive, versus what is Delcom there, and as a result Delcom just simply not able to find a way through, and this is giving GM Pietro the opportunity to break away. What Atkinson did say in the pre-race chat I had with him, that he was going to look to enjoy the racing, and this is Atkinson in his element. I can tell you that he is loving this. He is loving the opportunity to battle with drivers at the same professional standard as him, and it is great to see as the lounge at Bentley, whilst it does look like a colossal defensive brick wall, it's also a happy brick wall in the way it is simply being able to position itself well in the capable hands of the driver. But of course Delcom trying to do the same thing, and we can see that the Belgian driver, despite being on the offensive, doing a good job of keeping it clean, and a very, very smooth driving style from the Belgian. The number 22 driver trying to do everything he can to get the upper hand, as we see Harikonen behind right now in P5. He's closed up to this, but meanwhile your big question may be, okay, well what about our drivers who have pitted? Where have they come out and where are they in relation to one another? Well, we'll give you the update on that in due course, ladies and gentlemen. We're just going to stay focused on this battle for a little bit longer as they make their way into Pouan. And as they come through the left-hander of turn 12 there, you can see that it's the case that GM Pietro right now just simply able to hold the gap on Atkinson, as we say hello in the live stream chat to Shadowstalker DBS in the Twitch chat, and also Tom Gander once again saying it's the Porsche Cup race. Well, indeed, the Porsches around here, but I can assure you that whatever is not a Porsche machine is also having a good time as they make their way through turns 14 and 15, and it is great to see how GM Pietro is holding over the time being. But again, with half the pit window remaining, which one of these drivers is going to react first? They will only have another lap, or potentially a second lap. I doubt it. They'll only have one more lap after this, so we're going to expect this pack of 4 cars to split. Surely at least 2 of them are going to come in at the end of this lap, and the other 2 on the final lap in the pit window. Of course, we'll wait and see whether they all try to outweight one another out of the circuit, or outlast one another. But if I was either Atkinson or Delcom or Harikonen, I've got to go into the pit surely on this lap. I've got to find a way of undercutting this train right now, and we can see it's the case. The number 23 cars, Atkinson also comes in, and Delcom also comes in. So these 3 will all be coming out together. Meanwhile, Harikonen stays out there. Ben Walker's into the pit. So for Harikonen right now, this could be the smartest thing he's done. He's done the opposite of the pack he was coming up to here, and this may give him an opportunity to jump past them. Now, you're wondering at this point, of course, well, what's happened to our drivers who pitted earlier on? Well, I can tell you that Ethan Faulkner right now, the Irishman who was leading before he pitted, he's come out in P8. He has got a gap of 5.6 seconds to the next closest man behind him of Mathis Voss, and right now Faulkner is our lead driver of those who have pitted so far, and the driver who's chasing after him, Chris Zoiger, meanwhile, is in P10, and by comparison he is 15.5 seconds down on Faulkner as he makes his way into turn 13. Well, actually 15 seconds now that our timing screens are being updated. So Zoiger right now continuing to press on, and Westfield by comparison is only the best part of 2.8 seconds down on what is Zoiga right now. So as a result, Field is starting to close a little bit back up to his teammate here, and they might be working some magic with regards to the strategy. But meanwhile, Walker and company all in the pits here and waiting to go out on circuit. So this is going to really play out, as we can see there, the two Porsches pulling into the pits, and we've also got their Atkinson coming in. So they're all coming in right now. And how's this going to play out? We'll wait and see, as we see that Faulkner coming out of the final corner. So he is going to retake the effective lead out of the circuit, we believe, as he makes his way across the timeline. Of course, the pit lane is very long here at Spa because it doesn't exit out onto what is the run from turn 1 to turn 2. Instead, it exits out beyond Eau Rouge and Radion, so it comes out at the start of turn number 6, the right-hander for the Kimmel Straight. But you can see all our drivers popping into the pits, and it is the case that Faulkner right now, should we anticipate, regain the lead, minus, of course, the position of Walker and Harikonen, as Walker comes out the pits here. And where does this place Faulkner? Well, it's the case that Faulkner is going to be ahead of him, so Walker has come out in what is P3 effectively, and these two are the first two drivers leading right now who've yet to pit. And our one driver who has pitted, of course, has yet to pit, is Kevin Harikonen, who's going to be making his way around soon towards the pits at the end of this lap, with only 2 minutes 20 of the pit window remaining. Gianpietro, however, has come out just behind Chris Zoiga here, and look at this, Atkinson is out in P6 ahead of Field. He's jumped Field here, but will Field be able to find a way past as they make their way into the braking zone for turn number 7? And it is the case that Field finds his way past, but Atkinson has gained considerably in the pit window. He's got a 4-second advantage over Delcom right now. So as a result, whilst he wasn't able to get past Gianpietro, Atkinson has gained a little bit, but Field has managed to jump back ahead of Atkinson just about in the pit window. But Atkinson with the strategic play, and it almost worked out perfectly to get himself ahead of Field and Delcom, all in a single master stroke. And this pack in the battle for what is P3, once we see Harikonen pit, as Harikonen is coming to the pits right now. I'm looking out my window right now, and I can tell you that he's just coming up towards his pit box. It is the case that Chris Zoiga right now, we believe, is in that P3 position, but we will wait to see what happens here as he makes his way around. The gap is still 2 seconds between himself and Gianpietro, but now that Gianpietro has got that clear air and a fresh pair of tyres, we believe it's a fresh pair of tyres because he's got out ahead of Field. He has cleared Field, and it has worked out perfectly for the Frenchman here. This is the driver who's gained most from this pit window so far. We will wait and see what happens with regards to the Valkyrie Esport driver, because you can see how Field is really on an attack right now. So Field, after putting a fresh pair on and making some slight changes to the car, I would assume some slight changes perhaps to the setup of the car whilst in the pits, what they're allowed to do, of course. Here you can see it's Field really on a charge. In fact, he's looking so strong, he might be looking for a move here in towards Blanchimont or Turty the bus stop. We're going to stay with this. This is the battle for what we believe is P5 out of the circuit right now, but I suspect it's P4 once Harikonen comes out of the pits. But they go in towards bus stop here, and Field's going to look around the outside. Will he be able to get it done under braking here? He goes a bit deep, but he's been able to get the overlap into turn 20. They go, and Field's still there, but he's got a very tight apex, and as a result, it's the case that Gianpietro just holds on for the time being. Now, meanwhile, as they make their way in the long run down towards turn number 1, down towards the source, you can see that Field looking to the inside, but Gianpietro going to the centre of the circuit at the last possible moment there, as he's allowed to do. And as they come out of turn 1 and head through 2, it's no change right now, as Harikonen is still in his pit box. In fact, he's coming out right now as Harikonen, so this is all going to play out considerably as we see Zoiga there, but Gianpietro under that pressure. Now, where is Harikonen going to come out into all of this? We will wait to see as they come over the hill. And is that Harikonen there? Well, my goodness, sorry folks, that's Harikonen, who's just come out of the head of this pack, and I think if he's able to hold on here, he's going to lose out in the straight line run here towards Lake On. Come on, cameraman, turn it around. We can see that Harikonen going defensive here into turn 7. He may have just jumped 3 positions in a single pit. Oh, there's contact, and he's locked under the brakes versus Field, and he runs wide there. And I think Harikonen just on cold tyres. We can see that Field has been knocked wide, and Atkinson now is up into P5. So Harikonen trying to go late on the brakes on a very fresh pair of tyres, and it didn't work out. He's still ahead of Field, but I suspect the stewards may be crooning over that one a little bit, as we see Atkinson in P5. But the one driver who has lost out so much in this window is Delcom. He's dropped into P8, and Harikonen has effectively gained 2 places. He's got ahead of Delcom, he's got ahead of Field, but there is a cloud looming over the contact between the two of them, of course. But Atkinson right now has gained immensely, as has Gianpietro. These two have got themselves clear of the battling for the time being, and that's for Field to try and find his way back past. We see Harikonen has given the place back to Field, so Field is back into P6 after the contact between them going through Lake On there. So Harikonen showing the sportsmanship credentials and showing the respect, and he has shown that multiple times. In fact, all these drivers here battling have great respect for one another and great sportsmanship between them. But we can see right now has the fact that Field is really seemingly, he's got the pace once again, he seems to have found that balance in the car once again, but it's just a situation whereby he's lost out in the pit window through the battling, and he tried to make it work with the undercut, but it hasn't worked out for the number 420 driver. Again, he doesn't need to get a major result here to win the championship. He's won the championship, it's all said and done, no matter where he finishes, so long as he finishes the race, but we will have to wait and see with regards to Field as he comes into the bus stop, whether he can make it a top 5 or a podium finish, as we see Atkinson and Phil both go a little bit deep there into the bus stop chicane. And now we have 53 minutes of racing to go, and I can tell you that weather-wise, we still have clouds and sunshine. We have no rain forecast in the next 30 minutes, but our track temperature has dropped down to 26 degrees centigrade or degrees Celsius, and as a result of that now, it's going to take a little bit more effort to get those tyres up to temperatures. We're going deeper into the afternoon here. Track temperature is coming down, albeit ambient temperature is still staying at 21 degrees, and as a result of that right now, the tyres may just be slipping out of the window a little bit, and perhaps that's what was catching Field out earlier on. Perhaps the tyres weren't set in the right window. There was something wrong, but he's definitely now coming back and looking fighty. But meanwhile, up front, I can tell you that in regards to our race leader, Will Faulkner right now, he's got Ben Walker behind him. These two literally nose to tail here. And on that last lap, Faulkner's made a mistake somewhere because the gap has come down by the best part of 1.6 seconds over a single lap. It was 2:20.5, Faulkner's the last lap. Meanwhile, for Walker, as they come out of Vix, it was a 2:18.9. And I think it may be the case that for these two right now, they're simply going to work together. And I would absolutely dread to see them battle one another, given the fact that certainly for Faulkner, he will want a podium finish as a minimum here. And Distinct GG would want them to finish P1, P2. They won't want one another taking each other out. They'll probably do a little bit of nip and tuck racing as we can see Walker getting closer and closer to the back, but I don't suspect we're going to see any major theatrics, or if we do, there's going to be a few swear words down in the paddock after that one, and perhaps some virtual punches being swung, but we will wait and see as they make their way through Stavlo here, and we look a little bit further back, and GM Pietro right now in P4. He's got Atkinson closing up on him, has the Valkyrie Sport driver here, and we actually jump on board with Atkinson just to see it from his perspective as he makes his way here through turn at number 14. As they make their way out of Stavlo, we're just going to cut away very quickly, folks, because I believe there may be a switch of position. In fact, it looks as though Faulkner versus Walker, a little bit of contact between the pair of them, but Walker gets the move done there. So these two are racing one another's position right now, and Walker is now your new race leader. But I do wonder whether it's going to be the case that they're going to switch places back later on either through battling, or whether something's going to happen here. But we just called out at the very end, and we were hearing that something was building up in the run down towards bus stop with a small bit of contact, and Harrikonen with a 15-second penalty, and we're just going to find out. I believe that was the contact with what was Vez Field, as these two, our race leaders, make their way here through what is Erugen Radion once again, and they are so far ahead right now by 10 seconds. They can cool it down a little bit if they so desire with the 50 minutes remaining, but I don't think they're going to want to do so as they charge down towards what is turn number 7. Down the Kimmel Straight they go towards Lake Com here. Will we see a comeback here from Faulkner? The Ferrari's looking strong in that slipstream as they make their way into the braking zone. No change at the moment, but definitely a strong performance from the pair of them right now. But I definitely think down at the garage right now for Distinct GG, there's going to be a lot of sweat coming off the team principal with regards to them fighting one another if they do continue to fight. But meanwhile, I can tell you in P3, Zoiga is 4 seconds ahead of GM Pietro right now, and GM Pietro has got Atkinson inching closer and closer to the back of him as we hear that Faulkner is backed off a little bit from Walker. But coming back to looking at our battle for P4, it is the case that right now Atkinson is the stronger of the two in the Porsche versus Bentley fight. And as for Harrikonen in that P7 position, if you're wondering why he's got a 15-second penalty, that was for missing his breakpoint and taking Vesfield with him at Lacom when he exited the pits. And Harrikonen went for the move, of course, to try and hold on to the position, but it wasn't to be, so he now does have a 15-second time penalty. And Harrikonen did say he was going to give it everything he could, but he's just gone a little bit too far in terms of giving everything he could coming out the pits. But it was worth the try, but of course, when you go all or nothing, when it ends up being nothing, it can be a bit disastrous. But Harrikonen will take that one on the chin, I'm sure, and he's still looking as a minimum at a P8 finish today, unless there's some last minute dramatics or theatrics from any of our drivers right now. As we see the next man chasing after our top 8 in P9 is Nicholas Tardioli. We haven't seen too much of Tardioli beyond the occasional camera shot of him. That Valkyrie Esports driver here making his way through Poem right now and looking very composed for this P9 position. He's got a 21-second lead to Robert Velkoski, and indeed doing a nice job right now, just holding on to this position and keeping it all nice and clean and simple with 49 minutes remaining. And Velkovsky, of course, in our final top 10 position as it currently stands, the German, the back-to-motion driver in the Porsche, heading down towards Podium corner. But right now I can tell you, as we look back towards Atkinson making his way through a bus stop once again, he's continuing to press on. The charge continues as he chases after Gianpietro, and I think these two are going to be inseparable for the best part of the race. Like last lap, Atkinson 2 tenths faster, and 19.0 for Atkinson, a 0.2 for what was Gianpietro. They've both just set their fastest respective laps of the race, so they are pushing to the utmost right now, and they are dropping field very gradually. Field a 2:20.5 on that previous lap, 1.5 seconds slower than the pair of them. But as they press on, it is the case. I think it's still going to be nip and tuck as they continue to go deeper and deeper into this race, and we will wait to see, of course, what is going to happen as they make their way all the way down towards turn at number 7, heading down towards what is Les Combes once again. And as they do so, it is going to be the case. It is going to be very close between them as they make their way into the right hand of Les Combes. No change so far, but Atkinson, you can see from the body language, he's getting ready to look for that potential move a little bit later in the race here as he comes through turn at number 9 and pressing down towards turn number 10 once again into Brussels corner. It is the case that Atkinson are trying to find a way through, but they're so even, the Porsche and the Bentley right now. They've both got their strengths and both got their respective weaknesses, but we'll wait to see how it changes up. I think this is going to be the battle for P4 until the end. Chris Zoiger makes a mistake. If Zoiger does make a mistake, then that could open up the opportunity for P3 for the pair of them, but we'll wait to see. As Field behind right now, he has got Harikonen chasing after him, and Harikonen getting closer and closer as they make their way down, and I'm hearing for the contact between our two race leaders. No further action is being applied to either of them for a wheel bang at the end of lap number 29. Of course, there was that small contact between the two of them, but no drama there from the stewards' perspective. Our stewards letting them carry on as they were following the contact. But meanwhile, looking back to Field here versus Harikonen, of course Harikonen, he's got to try and find a way through it, and it will be about pride for Harikonen now. He'll know that he'll finish behind what is Field unless he's able to pull a 15-second lead come the end of the race, but that's what he'll want to do. He'll want to be able to one-up the championship winner, assuming that all ends as well as it can as they make their way up towards Blanchimont. But looking back up to P5 right now, we ride on board with Atkinson, of course, as he makes his way out down towards bus stop, and as they make their way into turn at number 19 here, let's just try and see the differences here in where Atkinson may be trying to gain some time and looking for a potential attack as they make their way out of what is turn 20 and to the end of lap number 31 and onto lap number 32 here. And you can see how it's the case that the two of them literally identical lap times here all the way through and through, and it really does feel as though, in all honesty, that as they make their way out of the source, you can see the Porsche gets the better exit. It gets the rotation so it can get on the throttle sooner, but Atkinson very composed with that exit. And as they run up through Rouge and Radion here, let's again see whether the Porsche is able to maintain the stronger apex speed where it has to lift. As they make their way through the right to left combination, you can see Atkinson, they get a bit too much throw over with regards to the front end of the car. I actually understeered a bit out of 4 into 5 into the left hander at the top of the hill, but as they make their way in the charge down towards what is Les Combes at turn number 7, this is where the Bentley gains, but you can see how he's having to pull out the dirty air there, and I think that's to get some cooling, and this is why Atkinson has been falling just a little bit back or starting to match pace rather than going a bit faster than the Porsche ahead of him. It is because of the dirty air, and he's needing to protect the car, and that's something which he's got to be very wary of. And of course, that's the advantage that Gianpietro does have, being in the lead position of these two, is the fact that he does not have to run in dirty air. So therefore, so long as he keeps it consistent and matches Atkinson's times, he doesn't have to worry about overcooking the brakes or getting the tyre temperatures too high or the tyre pressures too high, and therefore bringing the life of the tyres prematurely to end. Whereas Atkinson has to worry about that, and we can see that for Atkinson. Look at how he's having to nurse it through what is put on now. He's having to just creep the car through the left-hander. Of course, it will be slower through there because it doesn't have the rotation, but at the same time, I think it's the case that Atkinson, he's having to just gauge how close he can get before he starts to struggle with regards to those temperatures right now as he makes his way through turn 14. So with 45 minutes remaining, let's take you through the order as it currently stands. It is Ben Walker leading currently by not 1.6, my apologies, by 4 seconds. The McLaren driver here leading by 4 seconds over his teammate. Of course, both of them being from Distinct GG, and his teammate being Ethan Faulkner in P2. The Irishman having had a very strong performance thus far in the race and really looking to get on that podium come the season finale here. In P3, a further 5.7 seconds back is Chris Zoiger, of course, in this third place position. The Swiss driver from CHF Motorsport putting in a very solid performance and seems to have the upper hand of the CHF Motorsport team drivers that are featured here today. Makes his way across the timeline to go on to lap 33, and doing so as well is our P4 man of Ugo Gianpietro, who is currently in P4. The Frenchman under a lot of pressure from Jonathan Atkinson, but holding his ground right now. The two of them exchanging lap times, so we can see Atkinson there, the rear of the two cars, really taking an aggressive line into La Source here. I think Atkinson is going on the charge once again. And speaking of Atkinson, well, here he is, of course. We're now looking at him, the OTL racing driver here, having his strongest performance of the season thus far, as he makes his way through Rouge and Radion once again. As he comes over the brow of the hill here, he is 4/10 of a second back and actually getting the better run compared to Gianpietro's Porsche this time. So we're going to stay with these two for a little bit as they make their way down the Kimmel Straight, and let's just see what happens as our cameraman pans the camera around, and we can see Atkinson looking for the move here. I think he almost went for it. He's almost there, Atkinson. I think if he can have one more solid lap and get a little bit closer come the end of Rouge and Radion next time around, he is going to be within striking distance, but now he won't be able to go for it because of the Porsche's advantages through the second sector. But you can see Atkinson really flying here and trying to do everything he can to get ahead as they make their way through the right-hander of turn at number 10 and into X. Meanwhile, behind them, we have in our P6 position, that's Vesfield, the Swiss driver, who is our championship leader and will be our championship winner so long as he finishes turn 9's race. It will be the case that he'll be crowned our champion in this season. And we can see in that P6 position, not having the best of races, particularly in Stint 1, really struggled in Stint 1 and trying to hold on to that P6 right now. Of course, he has got Kevin Harikonen behind him, who is chasing after, as we hear that Romain Delcom has had to come into the pits. Now, I'm not sure what's happened to Delcom, but he's fallen a long way back. In fact, he's down in P13, is Delcom. So Delcom's fallen off this pack back. Kevin Harikonen right now, who we suspected was going to lose out to P8 because of the 15-second penalty he picked up after coming out the pits for contact with Vesfield into Lecom, as he tried to hold on to his position that he gained through trying to go for the overcut in the pits. It is the case that right now Harikonen is on course for a P7 with that 15-second penalty applied. But meanwhile, we look back towards our battle for P4 very briefly, and we can see that Atkinson not close enough as they make their way through Blanchimont here to try and go for a move in towards a bus stop. So we'll just make sure that it doesn't happen here. There's no major theatrics, and then we'll continue to go down the order for you, ladies and gentlemen. And we can see that no attempt at a pass this time. Then in P8 right now, and looking for one of his season best finishes, it is Nicholas Tardioli, the Valkyrie Esport driver in the Ferrari 488, of course, making his way through the right-hander there of what is Stavlo 2, and he is the best part of what is 22 seconds ahead of Robert Velkoski, who is in the P9 position, the German driver from Back to Motion, keeping it nice and clean, but he is being hunted down right now by Ingo Hermann, the German driver from Team Moors, making his way through the medium speed chicane of turns 13 and 14, and gradually trying to close down Velkoski, doing so by a tenth or two a lap. But we look back up towards Atkinson versus Gianpietro once again, and we can see as they make their way out of Rouge Radion and onto the Kimmel Straight, it is much like before, but Atkinson has a lot of momentum here, making his way down towards Lecom. He's going to look for it once again. He's just sizing up that little dummy, as we see behind. Meanwhile, it's Field versus Harikonen, and no change either. Harikonen making a small dummy there, going onto the Kimmel Straight, as if to say to Field, I'm going to send it no matter what. Well, actually, I'm only just simply trying to psych you out. But it is the case that Harikonen looking to try and get a move. Both drivers then trying to get past their respective Porsches here, the Bentley and the Ferrari, trying to make their way out the field. But meanwhile, just outside of the top 10, we do have Brandon Warren right now in P11 after we've heard that Richard Jepp has had to retire the car, and that's very unfortunate. But Brandon Warren, after having that disastrous start in P11 and really making a recovery of this race so far, is the American driver as he makes his way through Blanchimont and trying to chase down that top 10. But that top 10 position is the best part of approximately 36 seconds away. And Mathis Voss is closing on him. Voss, of course, in the French Intruder Racing Team machine there, the Porsche, trying to get himself back up as high as possible to try and hold on to that P2 position in the championship come the end of tonight's race. But I think that may be lost if he finishes this far down. And then in P13, Romain Delcom, who I think may have had an off or picked up some damage on the car in P13 and continues to press on as he makes his way right now through the first of the sequence of corners that runs from turn 10 through towards Puan at turn number 12, coming into X right now. That's turn number 11, of course. Next, Adrian Loisinger in P14. Haven't seen too much of the Dream Pace racing driver here, running a quiet race right now and trying to chase after Delcom, who's the best part of 20 seconds up the road. But he's a nice 34 seconds ahead of this man here, who, remember, Dave Jr. having a very difficult race, of course, with that disaster and having to pit with the major damage to the car after coming out of Rouge Radion and hitting both extremities of the wall. But Jr. chasing down right now Loisinger. It's a 33 second gap, but he's pressing on. That is our top 15, but we look back up to our battle for P4 right now, And again, we can see as they make their way out of the source, it's no change at the moment, but Gianpietro is definitely trying to hold off Atkinson as they make their way then through turn 2 and head up towards Uruguay Radion with 39 minutes remaining here. And we will wait and see what happens as they come through the sequence of corners, and I do not think Atkinson has closed enough this time to look for a potential move as they come out into the Kimmel Straight. And you can see how far back Atkinson is. He's actually a further 10th back than where he normally is as they make their way down the Kimmel Straight and in towards what is Les Combes, so he's had to back out of it once again here, unfortunately for him. Meanwhile, Kevin Harrakonen inching ever closer to the back of Vesfield, but not close enough to look for a move at this time around. Now, as we look a little bit further down the order, in P16 currently is Gareth Mills, who's had a quiet race. He's been holding on to this P16 position for some time. He's 26.5 seconds down on Dave Jr. in P15, and he's got Tony Hill chasing after him, who is the best part of 20 seconds behind him. And speaking of Tony Hill, another consistent drive from Tony Hill, the ULAGS driver here, just simply trying to keep it nice and clean in that P17 position. And then at the moment, we have got Jesse Monrose into the pits, who has pulled into the pits quite recently, and I think that may be another retirement. We now do only have 17 cars remaining on circuit unless Monrose comes back out of the pit lane. We started with 21, but we're now down to 17 drivers as we continue to press on with 38 minutes remaining, and it is the case that I think that attrition is starting to come in for a lot of drivers, and indeed it is a difficult one at the circuit here. As we look back to our race leader, Ben Walker right now just simply flying around and continuing to do well. His last lap of 2:18.696 being the fastest lap that anybody has set in this race by the best part of a 10th over his teammate, and that is of course Yves Faulkner, our P2 man, who's making his way through Blanchimont right now and simply getting a nice run out of the left-hander of turn 18, heading down towards 19 and 20 once again. But do keep in mind that Faulkner does have Chris Zoiger, who's catching up to him. Zoiger has actually been closing, as I say that, and Zoiger's gone very deep through bus stop there. He's got it completely wrong at the chicane, but he was closing up by the best part of 1.5 seconds a lap on Faulkner, but now that gap has expanded massively given the fact that Zoigas made a complete mammoth scale attempt of the bus stop chicane. You can see that Gianpietro there trying to close up, and he's asked Gareth Mills to get out of the way. Mills has moved out of the way, and Gianpietro now trying to really close up to the back of Zoiga there with that massive mistake, and Atkinson has actually fallen quite a bit back. He's fallen approximately 2 seconds back, and I think Atkinson managed to simply back the car off and decided to settle for P5 for the time being as he makes his way out towards Uruguay Radion. And we check in with you guys and girls, of course, in the chat right now. And it's Tom Gander there in the YouTube chat saying he can see all manners of opportunities with Assetto Corsa Competizione. When he was on Xbox and the servers were down waiting for a league race, did a hot lap challenge reversing a Bentley around Donington. Well, indeed, plenty of opportunities here, and we do look forward to seeing you, Gander. If you are joining us in Season 2, we would love to have you here. And we can see here Atkinson making his way through Les Combes once again through turns 7 and 8 and heading through into 9. And it's the case right now, just pushing on as we see Gareth Mills moving out the way for our P5 man. And we can see Vesfield and Harrakonen, the two of them inseparable, although Harrakonen has lost a bit of time to Field over the last couple of laps. In fact, he's had a worse lap. He's lost 8 tenths of a second on the previous lap, a 2:20.3 for the man we're looking at, Field in P6. Meanwhile for Harrakonen, a 2:21.1, so I think there might have been a mistake from Harrakonen on that last lap. Now, in terms of the weather, are we expecting any rain in the remaining half an hour or so of this race? Well, I can tell you at the moment we have purely got clouds and sunshine once again. We are not seeing any rain on the forecast radar right now. And as for our temperature, the ambient temperature has dropped to 20 degrees centigrade and the track temperature to 25. Those track temperatures are still coming down very gradually, and that might be starting to compromise some drivers' ability to maintain strong race pace here. And speaking of one driver who started to fall off the pace somewhat, Yves Faulkner, who was really flying early on, has started to fall backwards a little bit in terms of pace, and as he makes his way through Blanchimont here, let's just try and see if there's anything wrong with the car or whether he's just trying to nurse the car home here. Doesn't look as though there's anything wrong as he comes down in towards the bus stop chicane here, and we'll normally see through this sequence of corners in sector 1 if there's something wrong, but it looks fine, and we'll see what his lap time is. Walker, by comparison, our race leader, a 2:19.062 in the McLaren 720S, whereas Faulkner, as he crosses that timing line, a 2:20.8, so I think Faulkner, something is definitely up here, because Zoiga, by comparison, a 2:19.0. That's almost 2 seconds faster than Faulkner. I'm wondering if Faulkner's not putting enough fuel and is trying to fuel save here, ladies and gentlemen, because the only contact that Faulkner's had, as far as we're aware, was that tiny little tap on the wheels between Faulkner and Walker when Walker went for the pass into the bus stop chicane approximately 7 laps ago. But it is the case that right now that Zoiga is flying by comparison with Faulkner, and we can't really see what's what's wrong with the Ferrari driver's car here, other than he is losing speed constantly right now as he presses on all the same, and he makes his way down towards turn number 17 towards Lake On once again. And I do think he has got an internal problem right now, and perhaps it is fuel saving that he's having to do, because this is not looking comfortable reading. Although I say that, we can see here Chris Sawyer chasing after him. The gap has come down to 4.2 seconds. It has actually opened up a little bit over the course of the run out of European Racing here, and I'm wondering if Sawyer actually made a mistake to a degree as he comes down into what is turn number 10 once again, and we briefly take a sip of water. As Zoya presses on here, I think he does smell the scent of a potential P2 as he comes through what is Puon once again for the 37th time of asking. I would say for Zoya right now, he has to go for broke here, because the higher the position he gets, the higher the chance he has got finishing in that top 5 in the championship when all is said and done tonight. But we can see behind him the pressure is starting to manifest itself a little bit from GM Pietro, who, to be fair, was 6/10 of a second slower than Zoya on that previous lap. But meanwhile, it's Atkinson who has fallen back a little bit from Hugo GM Pietro, and I think this is more to protect the car from Atkinson's perspective, because that last lap from Atkinson was a 2:19.7 versus GM Pietro's 2:19.6. So we know that Atkinson has got the pace to match the Porsche drive, but because he was running for so long in the dirty air and so close to the back of GM Pietro, I do think that the Bentley driver has just overcooked the tyres to a degree, and also on top of that, had a difficult run with regards to the brake temperatures as well. And perhaps this is just an attempt at cooling the car down, just giving himself the opportunity to go racing towards the end, because you never know, it may be the case from his perspective that GM Pietro and Zoiga come together, and if so, then he'll be back right in the fight. And he's managing that gap to Field behind him. Field is only 1.7 seconds behind, but that gap is being very nicely managed as Atkinson sets a 2:20.1, Field a 2:19.7 there. So Field gaining by 0.4 of a second on that lap, but it is oscillating that gap between 1.6 seconds and 2 seconds typically. We will wait and see what happens over the next couple of laps, as we've got a little bit more racing to go here and still some fights on the horizon. As we check into the chat, we can see that we've got Sweet Alert here, and we've also got MS2 Fast For You returning to the Twitch chat, and we hope you guys are doing well and you're enjoying the racing action. As we see right now that the field has continued to space out a little bit, but we have got our race leaders getting quite close to one another right now. We're just waiting for the sign that somebody may be falling off the cliff, and the one driver right now who is falling off, and it does not look good, is Faulkner right now, who is losing out once again. A 2:20.8 his previous lap. Chris Zoiga behind him at 2:19.4. And actually, let's ride on board and listening. Can we hear anything from Faulkner's car? There doesn't seem to be anything immediately visible or audible with regards to the car, but it's definitely something he's struggling with, and I think it may be just simply rotating the car through the corners here. But let's just see the body language as it rolls into 13 and 14. And I think it may be the tyres have gone off, ladies and gentlemen, because you see how it was the case that Faulkner had to drift the car there through turn 13. And I think that may be what our Ferrari driver is struggling with in P2. Those tyres are not in a comfortable state right now. And with half an hour of racing to go here, I do think this could be the case that he's going to start to fall down that order considerably, because to drift through turn 13 like that, I know it's a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car, so that rear end is going to be loose by comparison. But Faulkner does seem to be really struggling on those tyres, and it's evident in those medium-speed apexes, or those third and fourth gear apexes, where the car just does not want to hold its rear down anymore. It doesn't want to be as plastered to the ground, and we can see there as he made his way through Blanchefont, having to take a wider line there and risk potentially picking up a track limits penalty, but he's kept it in line right now. But I think this is the tail in tail as Zuga continues to catch up to him right now. Sorry, Zoiga catches up to him right now, and on that lap, I think for Faulkner that's going to be a 2:20.8. Meanwhile, Zoiga a 2:19.5. He is charging, and GM Pietro behind at 2:19.3. The two Porsche drivers behind are catching up to the Ferrari driver, and I think for the Ferrari, it is going to be the longest 30 minutes of his life. He's going to be able to hold on to that P2 after the remaining 30 minutes of racing right now, because that Ferrari is not looking comfortable, and Zoiga is now only what is 1 second off the back of it as they go through European Racing once again. And Atkinson, meanwhile, has dropped even further back. The gap is now 3 seconds, but I can tell you that with Vesfield, the gap has opened up between Atkinson and the man pursuing him with Vesfield to 2.5 seconds. So right now, it is the case that for our Bentley driver, I think he is safe in P5, and he's just waiting to look for an opportunity to go for moves further up the order, but it is a long way away. As we see go breaking in towards Lecom once again here. And I think for Atkinson right now, it is one of situations. Hold on a second, what's happened to Field here? Well, Field battling with what is Harikonen here. And Harikonen, he's gone round the outside. I think it's the case that Field just defended as hard as he could. And Field still hold on to P6 for the time being. But when we looked away briefly, that was a 7/10 of a second gap between Field and Harikonen. Harikonen's just come out of nowhere. Have we also got problems for Field once again with regards to the car? We saw this in the remaining 20 minutes or so of the opening stint, that Field's car just seemed to fall back in terms of pace right now. And looking at the lap times, there's nothing to say there's a major issue with regards to Field's car. That last lap, a 2:20.4 for Field. Meanwhile, for Harikonen, a 2:20.0. But we've seen that from Harikonen earlier, that Field does seem to be looking as though he's struggling. And as we ride on board and look back here from the Porsche driver here, you can see the Ferrari just looming and looking menacing in the rear picture as they make their way through turns 13 and 14. And as they come out of the corners here and head down towards Stavlo, we're just going to keep our eyes on whether there's an attempt at a move. But there's not so far. But what I can see is an attempt at a move coming. Here we go as they make their way down towards Blanchimont. You can see how Faulkner has got Zuga all over the back of him as they come all the way through Blanchimont. That's turn 18. They go through the left-hander right now, and you can see how Zuga is all the way over the back of the Ferrari driver here and looking for a move from that far back, but he's not close enough to go for the move right now. But he is definitely eyeing it up, and I think there could be an attempt down into Lecom at the start of next lap. But meanwhile, Field versus Harikonen, and Harikonen going to be made to go all the way around the outside. Can he get it done under braking here? He's got a little bit ahead. They're side by side, but Field shuts the door initially, but he's got to keep it open off Apex to turn 20. There's a little bit of door-to-door contact, but again they stay as they were, with Field just carrying enough momentum. We know how well he can master the defensive art through that corner as they make their way down towards the source, and no change. Meanwhile, Faulkner versus Zoiga, they make their way through turn 2, up through Rouge and Radion, and we look back here from the Ferrari driver's car as they make their way up through the hill, and as they come through, we will wait and see, can the Porsche get close here, or will the Ferrari be strong enough to hold on for the time being? I think the Ferrari is going to hold on as they make their way, charging down towards what is Lecom. Down the Kibble straight they go here and into the braking zone. There's no change. In fact, the Porsche has fallen back somewhat. Meanwhile, Field versus Harikonen. Hold on a second. What's happened to Field? He's into the wall here, and as a result of that, Field has had a disaster over the top of the hill. And whilst we won't be able to catch the replay back, that's definitely a sign. That is similar to what happened to what was Dave Jr. a little bit. Field got it beached inside the wall on the right-hand side of the circuit, but Harikonen is now up into P6, and there's a drive-through penalty for Tony Hill, meanwhile, in P17. I'm wondering what that's for, as we'll wait to see with regards to that one. And it's we'll wait and find out what the drive-through penalty is for. It may be for track limits for Tony Hill, but we can see that Harikonen right now has gained P6, and with Field going into the wall there, you have to imagine that right now, if that car has picked up significant damage, we could be looking at a pit stop for Field, alternatively him just running off the pace, and Harikonen's 15-second time penalty, if he can get that gap beyond 15 seconds, it's 13 right now. Harikonen will be coming home in P6 as we look back up to Faulkner versus Zoya and also GM Pietro. And again, you can see how the Porsche driver getting ever closer to the back, and also GM Pietro getting closer to the back of the pair of them as they make their way out of turn number 16 out of Stavlo 2. And we ride on board here and look at Faulkner having a poor run out of Stavlo. And as they make their way down the straight here, we jump to the helicam, and you can see how Zoya's side by side already as they come up towards 17, and they're going towards Blanchimont right now. And it's going to be side by side through the left-hander, and you can see that Faulkner giving him every bit of space, and they just squeeze through together as we see that Faulkner there has to take to a little bit of the runoff area in order to stay safe. He holds the position for the time being, but look behind, you can see the Porsche coming in like a missile of GM Pietro as there's contact, and GM Pietro's knocked off the circuit there as Zoiga takes P3 back. But I think the stewards may be looking over that one, as we can see there's a flash of lights there from GM Pietro. I feel that he was inconvenienced significantly there, and that Zoiga turned into, and I don't think Zoiga even saw GM Pietro coming alongside him through turn number 20. And as a result, they continue on racing here, but now the gloves are starting to come off. There's 25 minutes left, and it could be the case that we're going to be seeing some penalties being accrued or mistakes being made, more mistakes that we've already seen as they make their way up for Uruge and Radion once again here on lap number 41. And you can see that Atkinson looming a little bit further behind as Chris Zoiga gets the better run there over the brow of the hill of what is turn number 5. And as they come out to the Kibble straight here and run down towards turn number 7, we can see that the Ferrari is able to hold the Porsches at bay for the time being, but that Ferrari is literally having to to battle to stay on the circuit in the capable hands of the Irishman of Faulkner, and we can see that Zoiga really pushing on for that P2 right now, but there might be a small cloud looming over him with regards to the contact between himself and Gianpietro as they make their way through turn number 9 and head down towards turn number 10 once again. And with regards to that drive-through penalty, I believe, I'm not hearing any confirmation of anything happening on circuit for what was Tony Hill. I believe that was for track limits, but as we continue to watch the racing for P2 right now, of course, Ben Walker, our race leader, is the best part of 18 seconds up the road from all this and just simply heading off into the distance. We can see that with Zoiga, Gianpietro and also Faulkner battling, that Atkinson is slowly catching up to this lot, and I think Atkinson is pacing himself not to catch up as we see as they come out of Horn here. It is the case that Zoiga looking for the move around the outside into what is turn number 13, and we can see that Faulkner going as deep as possible to block, but as they make their way into the switchback to left-hander for turn 14, it's going to be a double move, and as a result, it's now Zoiga who's going to be on the outside in towards Stavlo 1. He's still there on the outside as they make their way through the corner, but he has to back out. That there's not enough room, but that's going to cost him the speed as they come through Stavlo 2 here, and they make their way all the way round and charge all the way down towards Blanchimont once again. And you can see in this sequence right now, it is the case as we look backwards from the Ferrari of Faulkner, that Ferrari is having to fight tooth and nail to hold on to that P2, and as they make their way through the first part of Blanchimont into turn 18 they go here. Can we expect a potential double move from the two Porsches as they make their way towards the braking zone here? Who's going to be the first to flinch? We can see that it's Zoiga who looks to the inside here versus Faulkner. Oh, and there's a turn in there as Zoiga breaks as late as possible, and all three of them are side by side, and Atkinson comes in, but it's the case that Faulkner parks on the apex, and Zoiga versus Gianpietro are now battling side by side in the run down towards La Source. Once again, there's Gianpietro on the inside here as they make their way to the braking zone, and it's going to be a case that this will give Faulkner just a bit of breathing room as they make their way out of the corner. Zoiga goes around the outside, he's got more room to get the throttle down. He regains the position for the time being as they all tuck in line astern to head towards Uruj and Radion. Which one of them is going to emerge in P2 come the end of it? My goodness, it's going to be like this for the next 22 minutes. You can be sure that your commentator is going to lose his voice by the end of this one as we see Faulkner goes a bit wide there in the run out the corner, and as we switch the camera around, it is the case that right now Gianpietro is going to try and go around the outside versus Zoiga, and meanwhile Atkinson's trying to squeeze through, but Zoiga's wary of him, and Atkinson now looks at the Moses manoeuvre through the pair of them, but he can't find it, so Gianpietro on the outside to inside through 7 and 8. They're giving each other racing room, but this is giving Faulkner the ability to run away. There's a little bit of door contact there, but Zoiga holds on for the time being as they make their way out to turn 9, and now they calm it down as they head down towards turn number 10 once again here. But it's fantastic stuff, and there's not long remaining with regards to the race, but there's a lot of time. There's at least another 10 laps of racing between these guys as we jump on board here with the Bentley of Atkinson. He's got the prime view, he's got the popcorn seat view with regards to the battling up ahead of him right now, and it's probably just thinking keep it cool and wait for the opportunity when they make the mistakes and take one another out. And we always see smart racing from Atkinson, we do from all of our drivers, but right now Atkinson, I can tell you based on that language of the way he's driving, he's not intending to gain by overtaking one of them and again into a squabble. He's waiting for the fight to kick off between all three of them for an instant to happen. He's counting on it because right now he's got the time, he can take his time, he doesn't need to look for it, and we can see how Chris Zoiga right now is inching ever closer to the back of what is Faulkner once again as they make their way through Stavlo 1 and now heading to Stavlo 2, and as they come through the right hander, checking over my shoulder here with regards to the stewards. There's nothing so far, but I know the stewards are watching this one very closely as they all make their way, the four of them nose to tail for P2. They're separated by only a second from the head to the rear of the pack, and now they charge down towards Blanchimont once again. Into the left hander they go, and now up towards bus stop, and we've seen how Zoiga loves to go for the late move on the inside here. Will he go for it once again into the braking zone? He looks for it, but it's not close enough this time as they make their way, but you can see Gianpietro gets the better run through turn 19 and into 20, and Atkinson is right there now behind them as they all make their way through the final corner and onto lap number 43 they go. And as they do so here, no changes once again for the time being. We check in with you guys and girls in the chat right now, and it's the case that everyone's enjoying the race, and that's great to see. As they make their way out of turn 1, they head down towards turn 2 and up towards Uruj and Radial once again, and Faulkner having a poor run this time as they make their way through the difficult sequence. Up the hill they go, and it's going to be about how close Zoiga can hold to the back of that Ferrari ahead as he goes to the runoff area here, and Gianpietro gets the run as a result, and it's the case that Valkyrie Sport Driver now has the inside down the Kibble straight. You can see that Zoiga's immediately tucked in behind here. He's looking for an attempt back on the inside. Will he be close enough? I don't think he will be. He's going to go for it. I think he's going to go for it. No, he backs out at the last moment there, trying to make Gianpietro go deep under braking. It was a valiant attempt, but you see the mistake there being made from Chris Zoiga. He just simply ran too high out of turn 4. He ran wide out of turn 4 and had to go to the escape road over the apex of turn number 5. And as a result of now, Gianpietro is in the prime attacking position here. The Valkyrie Esport driver to go after the distinct GG driver of Faulkner as they make their way through X once again. But who can get past the Irishman? That is the big question. And I can assure you right now, in that cockpit inside that Ferrari, Faulkner right now will be baiting under his breath and saying to himself, just simply defend. You've got 19 more minutes to go. You are bringing home this podium. He will want this podium so badly after seeing it fall out of his hands at the Nürburgring for a pit error. Now it's the case that he goes down to turn 13 and Gianpietro is going to be the next driver who has to try and find his way through the fortitude of the Ferrari as they make their way through 14 and head up into 15 once again. Into the right hander they go, into Stavlo 1 and then round into Stavlo 2. No change right now. I can tell you your race leader Ben Walker, well, he's somewhere off in the distance, approximately 22 seconds, and minding his own business right now. But as they make their way out of Stavlo 2, you can see in the rear of your picture there, you've also got Kevin Harrakonen gradually catching up to these guys, albeit he's the best part of 5 seconds back, but he is starting to create that gap on Vesfield, open to 19 seconds, so he's targeting that finishing P6. But as they all make their way down towards bus stop here, we see that Chris Zoiga gets in closer. Gianpietro looks to the inside, he's not close enough. He's going to try and get as close as possible via trail braking, but it's not working out this time as we see Faulkner parks and then makes there's contact, and Zoiga contacts with Gianpietro, and they all steady it down as they Constantina, but Atkinson takes to the escape road. He uses the runoff here and Atkinson's up into P3. He waited for that opportunity and he's made it work. The OTL racing driver now will have the clear air. Will he be able to go hunting down Faulkner? That's the question there, but I think Gianpietro is going to be kicking himself at the contact with regards to the fact he had the contact of Chris Zoiga there, and Zoiga just simply getting too close as they make their way up towards Uru Girardi on here, and I think Zoiga will be absolutely screaming with regards to that one as we see he runs wide once again there over the brow of the hill, and I think it's the case of the Porsche drivers as Gianpietro gets a drive-through penalty, and we'll take a look at that very shortly. But meanwhile, Atkinson in P3 right now and chasing down the Ferrari ahead of him, and we can see behind that Gianpietro and also Zoiga are starting to hit the cliff in terms of what they've got left in the tank. Now that drive-through penalty, ladies and gentlemen, if for those wondering, I believe for Gianpietro, well, we're not seeing anything come up on our screen right now. We are waiting to find out from the stewards. I believe we are going to get word with regards to it very shortly, folks. I'll tell you as soon as we get something come through that everything is carried on for the time being. As we see they make their way through X once again. That may also be for track limits. I'm not 100% sure. We will find out as soon as we can. But there's nothing on our screen as we currently speak. But we are getting some updates in our stewarding panel right now as we see that Gianpietro holding on to position for the time being, making his way through Port here, but he has got Chris Zoiga all over the back of him, and Zoiga looking very fortuitous indeed to try and get back up into P4 as they make their way into turns 13 and 14, and behind them you've got Kevin Harrakonen now, who is closing up. Harrakonen has closed up to 2 seconds off of this battle and would love an opportunity if both of them end up with drive-through penalties, for example. He would love that opportunity to finish P4 and end his season on a high, as we see that Gianpietro gets it wide out of Stavlo 1, but he just shuts the door on Chris Zoiga, who's looking for every which way through right now, and you can see that the Swiss driver, the frustration is building and he wants that opportunity as we ride on board with Zoiga, the CHF Motorsport driver in P5, chasing after the Porsche ahead of him. There's still 16 minutes of racing to go. There's still approximately 8 more laps of this racing, and you have to imagine who is going to be coming home in the top 5 come the end of it. I think Atkinson is going to be safe for the time being, but if Atkinson starts to experience any more tyre temperature issues, alternatively brake issues, it will be the case that he'll fall right back into this one. He's only 1.3 seconds up the road from Gianpietro right now, and we can see that the lap times for Gianpietro and Zoiga have started to fall off as it's a 15-second time penalty for Zoiga. Meanwhile for Gianpietro it's a drive-through penalty, and Harrakonen has also got a 15-second penalty. Now why is that, you may be asking? It's because of the avoidable contact that we forced from Zoiga versus Gianpietro on the bus stop chicane only moments ago, and that's why he's got the 15-second penalty, whereas the drive-through I believe is track limits for Gianpietro. That's the only reason I can understand it is right now, folks. Of course I will get that confirmed if I can, but that's what we understand it to be. So for Gianpietro right now, he will fall out of this battle, and that will release Zoiga once again to go hunting versus Atkinson. But will he be able to? That's of course the question, because he's got that 15-second time penalty. And remember now, really, for Harikonen, our P6 man, who you can see at the rear of the camera shot here, in his mind now, he'll be thinking to himself, right, a drive-through penalty for GM Pietro is going to cost him at least 30 seconds of time. So I've got that position. Now I've just got to get past Zoiga on circuit, and for the two of us not to fight too much, because otherwise Field's going to get cooked. Because right now, Field is 23 seconds behind Harikonen, so there is an 8-second buffer which Harikonen can play with versus the Swiss driver, can the Frenchman, and if they can do that, it's going to work out marvellously. As we see GM Petros to go defensive here into Pool, and it's Zoiga who's getting closer and closer to the back here, and I know that GM Petro will have to serve that drive-through penalty within the next couple of laps. He'll have to most likely serve it come the end of this lap, if not the next one, otherwise he may incur further wrath from the stewards. But as they make their way to turn 13, you can see how Zoiga flashing his lights now, trying to get in the head of GM trying to get in the head of GM Pietro as they make their way through turn 14. It's no change at the moment, but what you can see ahead is that Faulkner has now got the Colossus, the behemoth of the Bentley chasing after him here, so the Ferrari driver is not all said and done, and the Distinct GG driver is trying to hold on for dear life, and his lap times have gone through the floor, I can tell you that much. A 2:21.0 his last lap versus Atkinson's 2:20.4. It is the case that Faulkner is having to literally wrangle everything out of that Ferrari to hold on until the very end, and speaking of holding on, he's going to have to hold on here in the braking zone towards bus stop. Atkinson looks for a potential move. He's not close enough as GM Pietro meanwhile goes defensive versus Chris Zoiga, and again there's no attempt at a move here, but we should see GM Pietro pull off into the pits soon. He's still got to take that drive through at some point. He hasn't peeled off into the pits this time, and I think it's the case that right now Chris Zoiga will make me wondering what's going to happen here as they make their way onto another lap, onto the 46th lap. 13.5 minutes still remain in this 2-hour race, and as they make their way into the source right now, you can see that Chris Zoiga doing everything he can in order to get ahead of GM Petro. He wants to get away from Harikonen because Harikonen knows he's got to pass Zoiga in order to get that top 5 finish, and well, it'll be a top 5 finish regardless right now, but he'll want that P4. He'll want to be as close as possible. As we see, meanwhile, Ethan Faulkner, he has dropped out of the order. I think Faulkner's had an off somewhere, and that car is limping along right now as it's making its way through. Has he run out of fuel, or is it the case something has gone wrong? But Faulkner has had a disaster. He's just creeping along here, and I think he is out of fuel. I think the car is limping home as we see that it's GM Petro there, and Harikonen battling with Chris Zoiga in towards Les Combes here, but he's not close enough, and he's had to back out of it. Well, that was a shock to the senses, but I think for Faulkner, that car has hit a cliff somewhere around the lap, and as a result, he is inching it home right now. He's limping home as they make their way down in towards what is turn at number 10, or I think there might have just been a mistake from Faulkner. He's run off the circuit, but as they make their way through what is turn number 10 and up into X right now, Faulkner has dropped down to P6, and meanwhile Walker is running away things, and Atkinson right now, would you believe it, is in P2, and I think right now he'll need to pinch himself because this is the highest he's been all season, and for once he hasn't had a race ruined by somebody knocking him off the circuit on the opening lap or later in the race. He's actually been able to enjoy the race and all the way to the end, and that is the one thing that he's going to be smiling from ear to ear about. Of course, he's got to keep the gap to GM Pietro and Zoiga right now, and with Ben Walker the best part of 29 seconds away from Atkinson, I think the race win's too far for Atkinson to consider unless there is a sudden bit of late drama on Walker's car, but of course we're not wishing for that. Nobody would wish that on anyone, ladies and gentlemen, but just saying what can happen. It's not over, and racing is all about crossing that finish line and making that checkered flag, but GM Pietro right now not taking that drive-through penalty until probably the last possible moment here. He wants to keep Zoiga and Harikonen fighting, and Faulkner having dropped behind these guys. I do think there is an issue with that Ferrari. Something has gone very wrong with the Ferrari after running off there, and we carry on our merry way around the circuit right now. And as they make their way in towards turn at number 19, into a bus stop once again, we can see that Zoiga here making his way through, and GM Petro pulls into the pits for his drive-through penalty. So now it is a battle for P3 unless Faulkner's able to stay with these guys and stay within that 15-second window. And I think this may be a tactical play, ladies and gentlemen, because look at the car right now of Faulkner. You can see that last lap was a 2:27, but remember, he had either it's a mistake or he's let people through coming out of what was Uru Gerardi on here. I think for Faulkner, he may be trying to save fuel in this car because there is something, or it's perhaps the tyres have just gone, and as a result he's having to drive a couple of seconds a lap off the pace, but with a 15-second gap to manage versus Zoiga and Harikonen. Remember, they have got to clear him by 15 seconds. If they do not, then Faulkner will still come home on the podium, and I think that's what he's going for here. We will find out, of course, if he does finish on the podium in the post-race interview, what happened there at the end, but right now I think Faulkner just needs to manage this. He does not need to race hard. As meanwhile, Zoiga versus Harikonen here, we can see that Harikonen over the back of him, but Harikkonen's actually run wide out of what is Lecom, and as a result he's now dropped in at behind once again, and he did try to go for a move. That's why he ran wide, but he went too deep under braking into Lecom as they make their way through the corners once again here, and we look to the exterior cameras a little bit higher up, and you can see that Chris Soiger right now doing everything he can to hold Harikkonen back. But remember, the more these two fight, the more likely that Ferrari behind them, which we know has got a problem, we're just not 100% sure what it is, where it's tyres, fuel or something else, or all of it combined, that Ferrari is going to beat these two because they've both got those time penalties right now. As we look back at our stewarding report, and we do not have any clarification with regards to that drive-through for GM Pietro, so I do think that is most likely track limits unless there is something else much further back, but we are not seeing anything right now, ladies and gentlemen. So as a result, we are going to assume it is what it is, as we see that Chris Soiger in that P3 right now, having to try and hold on. That is effectively, we understand it to be P5 right now, well, sorry, P4 right now with Faulkner behind. But remember, Vesfield as well is the best part of 26 seconds back on these guys, and if he can get within 15 seconds, that means that Vez will also get ahead of them. But Vez, I believe, is struggling with a wounded car after that contact earlier on. But meanwhile, in P7, one driver who's just been able to have a nice clean race, another Valkyrie Sport driver, who's now their lead driver, of course, in this race, is Nicholas Tardioli. He's got a 14-second gap to GM Pietro, and this will be a strong result for Tardioli, matching, if not surpassing, his result of the Hungaroring, which was his strongest in the season. And he's having a very solid race right now, as we look back to our battle here for what is P4 really out of the circuit with the time penalties as they currently stand, and that's Chris Soiger versus Kevin Harikkonen as they make their way down towards turn number 1 once again, and we jump on board here with the Ferrari driver. Now, with 8.5 minutes remaining, you've got to imagine after what has almost been 2 hours of racing, and the track temperature continues to come down. It's now 24 degrees. So those tyres, they're going to have to work so hard to keep those tyre temperatures up and keep those tyre pressures up. You have to think from Harikkonen's perspective, right, you've got 8.5 minutes, you've got 3 to 4 laps here. What do you do in order to get through? Well, firstly, it's the case that with those quite worn tyres now, you can't go charging through Eau Rouge and Radion flat out. We saw that he had to lift because the car was understeering wide of the turn 4 apex. But for Harikkonen, he's got to find a way to get Soiger to make a mistake, because the two of them seem inseparable in terms of lap time right now. But the Ferrari driver does seem, when he's in his peak, just to have a little bit of a pace advantage here. But the gap is now 8 tenths. He's got to try and close that gap up. Where can he do it? Well, it's going to have to be most likely in sectors 1 and 3, given that Porsche is so strong in sector 2. But we'll wait and see as he makes his way through turn number 10, and we go back to those exterior cameras once again here as he makes his way down into X corner right now and continues to try and chase after Faulkner there, just a further 1.5 seconds back off the back of Harikkonen, and continuing to watch on right now as Vesfield is not closing up in P6 at this current point in time. But meanwhile, our race leader, Ben Walker, 30 seconds ahead right now. He has got some back markers he's coming up behind, and I believe that is Dave Jr., and that's Mathis Voss and Brandon Warren. And we see Voss actually sizing up a move here for P11 versus Brandon Warren, as we see Voss flashing his lights here in order to try and distract the Ferrari driver. He's looking for the cutback move in towards turn number 20. As we see there, that's Dave Jr., who's a lap down, who's trying to unlap himself versus these guys. So his campaign to try and get into the top 10 hasn't quite worked out, but he is gradually unlapping himself versus the field right now as Dave Jr. The Mercedes presses on. But of course, he will be wary of the fact he has got the race leader coming through behind, and he will need to give way to the race leader in the near future, as we see Soiger right now holding on to that P3, starting to eat that gap to Harikkonen out. So instead, we will look back to our battle for P11 right now. This is Brandon Warren versus Mathis Voss here. They do have to be wary of the fact, however, they do have the race leader coming up behind him, and the race leader is going to want them to move out the way sooner rather than later. But still, the VRS satellite racing driver, he can hold off Voss here. I think that will be a huge achievement for him as he makes his way down towards Lecom right now, in towards turn 7. They go into the braking zone very shortly, and as they come up towards that timing line into the heavy braking zone, we can see Dave Jr. moving out the way of our race leader, and I think the blue flags will now start waving for Voss and also for Warren as they come all the way down here. And of course, it'll be about tactics now. Voss will be looking to let what is Walker through. I have to let Walker through at the most opportune moment whereby he can gain the most. And I suspect what Voss may try and do, he might try and do a small lift off coming out of Stavlo 2 and tuck in behind Walker to get the slipstream. That might be the best way to do it. Alternatively, he may do it come the run out of Pouon, just simply because it's a shorter run up towards turns 13 and 14. He doesn't lose as much momentum, but we will wait and see, as Brandon Warren is definitely under that pressure right now, and they make their way through turn 12 and head down towards 13. And we can see Voss right now eking that pressure on, but not close enough to go for an attempt at this point. As we see, the blue flags are now being waved for Voss, so he will need to respect the McLaren driver coming through behind him. as they make their way through turn 14 and head into Stablo here. How will Vos play? We'll wait and see as they come through Stablo 1 and in towards Stablo number 2. Very shortly, 5 minutes to go, and it's one more place that Vos would love to tick off after what has been perhaps his worst race of the season in terms of the performance overall, but plenty to take from it, and this may be him losing out into the championship with regards to P2 overall and dropping a little bit further down as we see Vos right now make his way up in towards Blanchimont here. They go charging through turn 18 and head down towards 19 and 20. Will he go for the move here, or will he start to think about giving way to the driver behind? We see he looks for a potential cutback move once again, and he does try to go around the outside here, but we see that Warren defends hard and the blue flags are out in full force now for both drivers, and Walker will need to be let through. Meanwhile, behind we can see that Chris Zoiga and Harrison still racing one another, and Ethan Faulkner only 4 seconds back as they make their way through what is Stavlo number 2 and head up towards Blanchimont. But we look back towards our racing leader here, and he is trying to sieve his way through, but Vos versus Warren, and they're still fighting one another, but we can see how Vos has got the run here versus what is Warren. Both of them side by side up into a rouge here, and I think Walker's going to want to back out of this one. He will not want this compromise this race, and they go side by side up the hill, and they just now squeeze through as Watts gets it wrong, and Walker's got to be so careful as he just makes it through there. Lights are flashing and Vos is into the wall, and I think that Ben Walker right now, his heart is going to be in his mouth because that was near disaster for the race leader, and he's managed to split the seas of the pair of them, and I think that right there is Walker's 9 live shoe start. I think if any more right now and it is game over because that was near disastrous. As we look a bit further back and we can see Atkinson right now in P2, where he is the best part of what is 30 seconds down on our race leader, but our race leader right now will be absolutely relieved that he was not involved in that entanglement between Warren and Vos, as Vos got it wrong. Looks of things coming out to turn 4, and then it was just a case of Vos's car taking him on a merry journey, and as part of that Warren followed suit, and I think the stewards will be coming out in force for that one in short order as we see that Zoiga versus Harrison getting closer down the Kimmel Straight with only what is 3 minutes to go now. One more lap I believe after this one as they make their way through Lake Om and head down towards turn number 10 once again, and Harrison on an attack once again as we see that Faulkner has now dropped back to 4.5 seconds back on these guys, but he's still comfortably on the back of them in terms of being there in order to be able to pick up the position as they make their way down. And with regards to warnings, if you're wondering there, ladies and gentlemen, with regards to how we can tell about track limits, you can see to the side of the driver's name on the right hand side, you'll see some coloured bars. If you look at Brandon Warren's, for example, you can see he's got an amber bar between the Ferrari symbol and his name, and that's halfway fill effectively. That's to show you the number of track limit incursions that they're permitted. Once that bar fills up, they will receive penalties. That's my understanding, at least, as we see here that Zoiga and Harrison making their way through 13 and 14. So that's to answer to what is Tom Gander's question. As we know that Zoiga right now continuing to press around and making his way through Stavlo 1 and just holding on to the position, but Faulkner right there, he's only what is 5 seconds back on the battle for P3 on track, but this is effectively his P3 that he will inherit once they've taken their 15-second penalties, assuming he can make it to the end of the race unscathed on fuel capacity right now, because it is looking as though it is near the marbles and it is near the margins. Those tyres are also going, but Faulkner carrying on here. He is lapping compared to the guys ahead of him. He is lapping now 1 second a lap slower as a minimum consistently, but he's been putting in consistent laps here, so I think he is managing whatever the issue is and continuing on his way. As we see our race leader is on to lap 50 right now, and Atkinson has just joined him on lap number 50 as we see the Bentley driver, the OTL driver here, making his way through the source and continuing on. We check in with our stewards once again here, and with regards to our stewards, well, they are very active, I can tell you right now, with regards to Vos and Brandon Warren. We will wait and find out what's going to be dished out for both of the drivers there, but I can tell you that there's activities happening in the stewards booth right now, and indeed it's great to have the stewards on board from the sim grid. Great to have them here, and also members of the NXTGEN Racing team acting as the stewards. It's great to have them here, and it's the stewards that make the racing just as great as also the drivers themselves. We've got to give a hand to everybody involved in running things, as we see Atkinson making his way down towards what is turn number 7. But meanwhile, it's that side-by-side battle once again, and Zoiga, he's lost out the momentum here into turn number 7, and it is in the end Harrison who makes his way past the Swiss, does the French. He's finally got it done, and as a result of that, it is now the case that it looks as though Harrison will try to break away, but will the Swiss be able to come back at him? That is the big question here as they make their way through turn number Well, it's turn number 10 here and head towards X, and I believe we will have one more lap after this. Our leader will take us on to a final lap we will be very close to. We are on lap 51 right now, but Zoya is all over the back of Harakona as they make their way down towards Podium corner here, and as they do so, you can imagine that Zoya would love an opportunity to come through. As they come down through Podium, we'll see whether there's going to be a potential move in towards turn 13 here into the medium speed chicane. I don't think there's going to be. I think the Porsche driver is too far back as they look into that braking zone, but meanwhile, I can tell you that Walker, I think he's not going to get one more lap in, so as he makes his way down towards the bus stop chicane here, he has led this one since the midpoint, and it will be, as he comes through the final corner, it will be Ben Walker from Descent GT who takes the win in round number 8 of the next-gen European GT3 Assetto Corsa Competizione Cup Season 1. A brilliant drive from Ben Walker, and one to be proud of, and as he makes his way right now through Blanchimont, it will be the case that for Jonathan Atkinson, returning after missing the Nürburgring last week, he wanted to have a fun night of racing. He wanted to keep it clean. He wanted to keep it consistent. And it is the Briton of Atkinson making it a 1-2 for Britain, who crosses the line in P2, the Bentley driver there. And then it will be, well, after crossing the line, Harakkonen, who comes home in P3 ahead of Chris Euger. But once the time penalty is applied to the two of them, it will be Ethan Faulkner who crosses the line in P5, but will be promoted to third place to the podium. So it will be a P4 for Kevin Harakkonen, and it will be a P5 for Chris Euger. And as for Vesfield, well, it wasn't going to be the better race today for him after that difficult end to the first stint and a difficult end to the second stint. But what I can tell you, as he makes his way down towards the bus stop chicane right now, is that he has been dominant throughout the season, and today wasn't a case of dominance, of Swiss dominance. But as he comes out the final corner, he will take P6 here, and Vesfield will be your champion in the inaugural season of the European GT3 Series as hosted by NXTGEN Racing, and he will take the checkered flag ahead of Nicholas Tardioli in P7, a season best for Tardioli, a brilliant drive, and it will be Ugo Gianpietro who in the end, after a difficult race and battling for the podium at one point, who has to settle after that drive-through penalty for a P8, but plenty to take forward into subsequent seasons as he crosses the line. And then Ingo Hermann, who would have thought it, the German driver here, the Team Mouse driver, as he comes down towards the bus stop chicane. He's had a consistent race through and through. He's kept his nose clean of trouble, and as he makes his way through the final two corners here, he is going to come home in P9, which I believe is his best performance all season, and a brilliant drive from him as he crosses that timing line. And then last but not least, our top 10, it will be Robert Velkoski, who, much like his fellow countryman who finished in P9, the back to motion driver in the end will be crossing in a top 10 position, another season best as well, and he picks up that P10. A brilliant drive there, as it will be Mathis Voss who in the end has come home in P11 when all is said and done. And we've got Brandon Warren who came home in what I believe was a P12. But congratulations to all of our drivers, but to our race winner in particular, Ben Walker. A brilliant drive, a phenomenal drive from Ben Walker. And we will be right back, ladies and gentlemen, in approximately 2 to 4 minutes for our post-race interviews with our podium finishers. Don't go anywhere, you will not want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, without further ado, we are going to start with our race winner, and that is Ben Walker from the United Kingdom. Hello, Ben, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Hey.
Firstly, Ben, congratulations on taking the win in the final round today in the 2-hour race. How does it feel to win at Spa?
Unexpected. Quite nice. Yeah, it's not bad. I was quietly confident after free practice because I think most people in free practice, their fastest times were like quali sims, and that whole free practice session I just did full fuel runs, and my best lap was only a second off with 80 litres on board. So I was like, right, I should be okay, but I still didn't fully expect to be on pole at the start. I was like, oh, this is quite good. I'll take that. Happy days.
Well, it was definitely a phenomenal performance, and just taking things a step back. So with regards to qualifying, it was a brilliant qualifying session from yourself, and indeed a lap to be right up there, right on the front as well. What were your thoughts going into the race, having got yourself on pole in quali?
Yeah, well, they were good for my pace. I was confident I had the pace to win. It was just the fuel was my biggest worry. As you probably will have noticed, this formation lap was really slow because I just crawling around in 6th gear trying to save as much fuel as I could, which had the side effect of meaning I didn't quite have the tyres up to pressure, which is what made me vulnerable at the start. But I was confident even if they could get past me at the start, I had the pace to then get back past them once I got up to speed. And to be fair, the fuel wasn't as bad as I expected throughout the race, so that helped, and I was able to just push at the end there, which was quite nice.
And with regards to that, so in the opening stint in particular, we saw this interesting dynamic between yourself and also your teammate, Ethan Faulkner. Can you just take us through that? Because we saw you guys, I think, it change places at one point to give, much like what we saw at the Nürburgring, I think it was to give Faulkner the opportunity to go hunting down the race leader.
Yeah, we slowly caught back up to field. We had the pace on him, and we slowly caught back up to him. I tried to run around the outside into Les Combes, up the Kemmel Straight, and we just touched doors at the top of Les Combes, nothing major, just a little door touch. And to avoid unsettling the car and trying to force it into the corner, I just straight lined Les Combes and checked the mirror, checked the radar. Saw Ethan was quite close and was like, no, I'll let the two of them go. I then avoid getting a cut track, and I avoid causing any sort of incident joining the track unsafely. So I was like, no, I'll sit behind them, and again, confident I can keep up with them and catch them again if I need to. And yeah, they then carried on from there.
And then with regards to, once we came to the pit window, we saw you come out alongside your teammate, and we saw you two go toe-to-toe battling. Was it planned to go battling? Because we did see some contact between yourselves at bus stop, a tiny little wheel tap, but I must admit, personally for me, I was getting worried that somebody at Distinct GG was going to have to intervene and say to you guys, make it a P1, P2, don't fight over this.
I say it wasn't planned to be. It had to happen quite as quick as that. It was Ethan had a slight issue with his tyre pressures, and that meant he was well off the pace in the second stint. So I didn't expect to catch him anywhere near as quick as I did. And seeing the pace he was at, I was catching about 1.5 seconds a lap. I thought, it would be nice to sit behind him and have the 1-2, but Zuga's only 11 seconds behind at this point in time, and he's catching by, again, 1.5 seconds a lap. I thought, there's enough time he'll catch the both of us if I just sit here. I'll go for it. Yeah, I maybe overrun the corner by a foot or two, and we ended up clanging front wheel with rear wheel, but we just about got away with it. The squeaky bum there, that was.
Oh, most definitely. And then from one squeaky bum to another, I've got to ask you, what was going through your mind going up through Rouge and Raidillon when you were trying to lap your way past Mathis Voss and Brandon Warren, who were battling, and Voss had that incident?
I caught them the previous lap, and I've been saying to Ethan the whole time, because I could see myself catching them. I was like, I really don't want to catch these guys before the race ends, because these guys are playing for keeps. They're going for it between the three of them. I'm quite happy to sit behind them at 1.5 seconds and let them do their own thing for this last 2 laps, and I'll just sit behind them. And if an opportunity arises, I'll go through. If not, I'll sit here. And then Dave lifted off at the top of the Kemmel Straight and let me go, and that was kind of that's probably the worst case scenario now, because now I'm ahead of Dave and stuck behind Voss and Warren fighting with each other. So unless those two both let me go, Dave's probably going to want to get back through to have a fight with them. Those two aren't going to be really looking in their mirrors, because they're going to assume, well, right now I'm in between them and Dave, so they don't have to worry about Dave anymore. So when I saw the two of them going side by side into Eau Rouge, I was just like, I was just saying no, all the way down the hill. And because I couldn't really back off, because Dave was up behind me, and he wouldn't be expecting someone to lift in the middle of Eau Rouge to do that in a flat out corner. I'd probably get rear-ended by him. And then I saw them go side to side, so I just lifted a little bit in the bottom of Eau Rouge, and sure enough, they spun each other at the top of the hill. Jabbed the brakes quickly, because Voss spun across the front of my nose, and I just got a slight push from Dave behind me, and he thankfully pushed me square in the back, so we both just carried on straight up the hill. But yeah, it was probably the biggest intake of breath throughout the entire race.
Oh, goodness me, because we caught it all on camera, my lord. I mean, I think a lot of people tuning in were absolutely panicking at the moment, and I was thinking to myself at that point, if it ends up going south and you end up going around, I can only imagine how gutted you are going to feel. But still, it wasn't to be that way, and with it ending on such a high note, I do have to ask, what has been your highlight of this season?
Oh, God. Probably either the qualifying lap at Snetterton or the qualifying lap there. Either of those were probably about as good as I could drive the McLaren. Because, I mean, yeah, Snetterton was good. I probably lost 2/10 at Spa from my fastest lap. But, yeah, particularly today, the McLaren was just dialed in and was just on rails. I was just able to do what I wanted with it. And it just responded nicely every time. No understeer, no oversteer. Tyres were in a good window, brakes were in a good window, nothing was overheating or under temperature. It just drove round, and it was lovely. it was I didn't have to concentrate too hard. It just went round the track. It was just great. That's probably the entire Spa evening, I think, qualifying and the way the car felt during the race. The pit stop went all right. Yeah, it was just a good evening, I think.
Well, to add to your good evening, we believe, subject to final confirmation of the results, that win has moved you from P4 in the championship to second place overall come the end of the season.
Yeah, I'll have to check the gap to Voss, but yeah, I don't think Brett finished in the other Bentley. He was the main guy I was watching, because he's finished in the top 10 almost every race. So coming into it, he was my target, was to try and get ahead of him and onto the podium overall. But that meant finishing at least if he finished in the top 10 again, which he's done all season, was to at least finish on the podium. And after that qualifying lap and the first few laps, I was like, I've got the pace to do this. I just need Brett to have a bit of a mare. And I don't know if he finished. I didn't see him on the finishing list, but yeah, maybe he got Voss. Don't know. We'll have to see when that all adds up. But yeah, third's a good to come back after 39th in the first race after it all went pear-shaped.
It's definitely been a brilliant performance from yourself, and well, we do have to ask, can we expect to see you again in season 2?
I'm going to take a small break from racing, league racing after this, because I've been league racing for the last 18 months back to back, and I don't want to burn myself out. So I'll probably take a break second season, and if there's a third season coming up, I will probably be back for that to try and just focus on the SimGrid World Cup races that are coming up, and then back on next gen, probably season 3. I guess that'll be around Christmas, and wish everyone a happy new year when I come back, I guess.
Well, whilst we would of course love to see you out on circuit in season 2, completely understand the reasons for taking the break and avoiding the burnout. A very sensible choice. But again, it's been a pleasure to watch you race over the course of this season, and congratulations once again on a phenomenal win to turn around what has been a difficult start to a season and only to rise all the way to the top of the podium come the end of it. Congratulations and well done on what we know is at least a P3 in the championship, but could potentially be a P2.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your commentary this season. Thank you to Kevin and the other stewards and the other organisers behind it all. Congratulations to Field on the win overall. Congratulations to whoever else is on the podium at the end, and to everyone that stuck around and participated for all the races throughout the season, for making the championship a championship. So yeah, I think that's where I think it rounds up congratulating and thanking everyone, I think.
Oh, most definitely. But thank you for joining us in the interview box, and we hope to cross paths with you once again soon and see you back out on the circuit. But until then, all the best in your endeavours.
Bye bye.
As we can hear there, Ben very happy with his performance tonight, and indeed very pleased, and it's his highlight Spa, with the qualifying lap only to be backed up in the end with the win overall after what was a very challenging 2-hour race. And whilst he's taking that break, as he mentioned there, he's going to be back racing, and be sure to keep your eyes out for him in the different series being run by the Sim Grid, including the NXTGEN Racing Series and others to boot as well. But we look forward to seeing him back out on circuit in the near future, regardless of the series that he is racing in. That brings us from our race winner to our second place man, and that is Jonathan Atkinson. Let's have a chat with the man in the Bentley.
Oh, hello.
Hello, Jonathan, can you hear me?
Hello, yes, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Lovely.
So, firstly, congratulations on the second place today. It's been a long time coming, I think, in your mind to get on the podium or into that top 5. How does it feel?
How can I just... Redemption, more than anything, considering the missed opportunities of, obviously, Imola, Snetterton, and Misano to a degree. But, like I said, I literally came into this race, or this qualifying and race, with no expectation whatsoever, and literally was just to get top 10, and I'd be all right with that. And I honestly was just saying to Ethan and Ben, I wasn't expecting a podium at all, so I'll take it. I'll take it any day of the week.
So just breaking it down, starting with qualifying today, a difficult qualifying session for yourself. I think it was P11 in the end in qualifying. Just take us through how that came about.
Yeah, P11 in the end. Ideally, if I aimed my optimum lap time, I probably would have been P9 at least, possibly P8. But for some reason, like I could nail a fast lap in like free practice and stuff, but for some reason or another, I just couldn't seem to optimize qualifying when it really matters. And I did have one last go on the last run, but unfortunately it got a cut detect, so I had to abandon it. In the end, I mean, I was on the cusp of P10, top 10, sorry, and yeah, and I thought, well, the only way was forward from there.
So in taking the sort of effect of qualifying into the race, what was the goal in the first stint? Because we know from yourself, whenever you found yourself in those recovery drives, we've seen the driving style where it's like you're a snarling beast, just waiting for that opportunity to pounce, gain a place, move on, gain another place, move on. Were you taking that same approach today, knowing that if you could clear the first couple of laps, it was about just gradually gaining those places?
Yeah, pretty much. Normally, sort of take a half-and-half approach. I mean, if I do find that I'm in a bit of a gaggle, I take it a bit cautiously. Unless I see an opening, then I'll go for it. But genuinely, once things start to pan out a wee bit, then I tend to be more on the aggressive side. So if I see a move, I'll go for it. But then at the same time, I'll weigh up the options and see if I do end up going for a move, will it result in me losing time, maybe a penalty, as proven before, when I've gone for first lap moves, and it has resulted in a penalty for me. Just thinking about Imola for this moment just now. But the main thing is, and I've done this all through season, I don't focus the emphasis on qualifying and fast laps. It's mainly consistency. So if I can aim for a relatively quick lap over a race with race field and stuff, then if I hit it every time, then I just seem to be able to claw up the ranks.
And in taking that approach into the race, we saw, with regards to the pit stop in particular, the strategy, how you managed to gain so significantly through the pit window. Just take us through what the idea was when you came into the pits.
Generally, I like to pit as late as I can, but I mean, considering I was in a bit of a gaggle and it was touch and go if I could actually do another lap, so I thought I'll pit now, and I actually just nailed the stop. I mean, even though I actually had, I think, a second and a half of damage. So, and the only thing I could say is that maybe, I think the number, was it 23 or 25? One of the Porsches. I can only assume that he missed his pit box, either too long or too short, which is that's the only reason I could think of where I gained so much time at the pit stop.
Then coming away from the pit stop, having gained the position and finding yourself at the head of that pack in that what was essentially an extended battle for P3 at the point in time until Faulkner started to fall off the cliff in terms of performance on the second stint. From that point onwards, was it just about consolidating the position? Because you were in a very long battle with GM Pietro for the extended part of what was 30 minutes.
Yeah, but he and I actually have had quite a few battles this season, so and he's always been fair with me, and I've always been fair with him. So with him, I knew I could see what he's going to do, where he's going to defend and stuff, and I know he's going to give me space. I'm going to give him space. And there was times where neither of us would defend each other. We would actually use each other to gain time on the cars in front. And then unfortunately that we gaggle with Ethan's tire drop. And then unfortunately he and another Porsche made contact, and I was able to capitalize just by cat-like reactions. And I thought, oh, I'm in P3 now, okay. And I was kind of at that moment settling for P3 until I was gaining quite a lot of time on Ethan, until he lost it on top of Radion, and I thought I was going to hit him. But I literally just dodged him at the last second and just went exit stage left. And I was like, oh dear, I'm in P2. All right, okay.
So we didn't quite see the incident involving Ethan, but we can see in our YouTube chat right now, we've got Gian Pietro saying that he was very grateful for the battles with yourself and saying that you're always super clean and he really enjoyed the battles with yourself. So it's great to hear that respect between the two of you. But coming back to the moment with Faulkner, so we didn't see it on camera. We saw the aftermath where Faulkner was rejoining coming out of Uruguay and Radion and onto the Kimmel Straight. Just take us through what happened from your perspective. Because we're going to ask Faulkner about it when we talk to him, but we didn't get to see it.
Well, from my short-term memory, I got quite a good run out of La Source going down the hill up to Rouge, and so I thought, if I was going to make a move, it would be at the end of the Kemmel Straight. That was my intention, because I had quite a good run. And I think halfway up the hill, he just started to lose. I mean, I don't know if he clipped the curb or if he just bottomed out, but he just literally, the rear just went on him. And then I was probably half a car length behind, thinking, right, I was always told in real life racing, whenever somebody spins, aim for where they've last been. So I aimed for where he was last, because he went to the right and I just went left. And I actually honestly feel bad for him, because I kind of was hoping for a bit of a battle with him, but at the end of the day, I'll take the P2 anyway.
Well, very true. And then looking backwards over the course of the whole season, what would you say has been your highlight of this season?
Unquestionably, my comebacks through adversity. I mean, thinking about my woeful qualifying in Barcelona to finish P7, I think, in the end. I've always, apart from Misano, which was an absolute nightmare, I've always prided myself that no matter where I qualified, I've always gained positions in the race, whether if it's through just pace or by going long on strategy or a combination of both. But no, I think the outstanding thing for me this year has been my comebacks.
Well, it's definitely been the one thing that we've noticed time and time again, and we've spoken about it in the commentary multiple times, is the fact that whenever you've had a race where it's gone wrong in the opening lap or in the opening half, you just seem to find your way back into the top 10. You're always there recovering, and that's the one thing which we thought today, that if something was going to go wrong, we'd see you dig deep once again, but it wasn't to go wrong, and it worked out brilliantly for that P2. And the one last question we do have: what lies next ahead for you in terms of your sim racing career? Can we expect you coming back for season 2 of this, or are you on to pastures new?
I'd like to say yes, but unfortunately, the way the calendar is that I've seen, unfortunately, it's going to be pastures new for me. But that's not to say if there was ever a season 3 or season 4, if things do work out, then I'll come back. But at the minute, I'm going to be doing the OTL Racing League season 8, I believe we're in, and we also have a British GT style format of endurance racing that we've got coming up, and also we as a team going to be doing the Silverstone 10 hours with I can't remember who it is. I think it's Access Racing or something. I'm sure the guys will correct me, but we've entered a four driver team for that. For the Silverstone 10 hour on the 10th of September. But beyond that, there's not much else on the horizon. And can I just say one thing before I go?
Of course.
I want to congratulate Fields on winning the overall championship, and I also want to give a massive shout out to the OTL Racing guys for either cheering me or trolling the Twitch streams. And if any of the guys are listening, I hope I haven't let you down. Thank you.
Well, I definitely don't think you will let them down. But once again, congratulations on the second place today, and for cementing what is definitely a deserved finish well within the top 10 of the championship. Obviously, we'll wait for the final results to come in later tonight. But I wish you all the best in your future endeavours in both sim racing and real world racing, and we look forward to having you cross paths with us once again in the near future.
I wish you all the best in the future, and I hope to talk to you again in the near future. And take care of yourself and have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Well, hearing from Jonathan Atkinson there, a strong performance once again, and you can hear that pride in Atkinson of the fact finishing in P2, and it was to go his way today and things were to work out. He wasn't the driver to experience the adversity in the race as he had in so many races prior to it, and instead it just went right, and he got some fortune, particularly the battle between Gianpietro and Zoiga in the end, where Atkinson was able to gain the 2 places, but it's definitely come full circle, and if he does come back in the near future, we can expect plenty from him. But definitely a strong finish, and perhaps the definition of never give up is Atkinson, I would say. It was a fantastic drives every single race, and the pride is there. But now we must come on to our third place man, who's been patiently waiting, and that is Ethan Faulkner. Just going to drop it in here. Give us 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. We're just experiencing some very slight technical difficulties. Hello Ethan, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Brilliant. Right, firstly, congratulations on 3rd place today. I've got to say this, we've been expecting you to be on this podium for some time, but you've finally made it. How does it feel?
Well, technically this is my 2nd pony in a row, because last week I made an appeal because I had issues with pit stops, so I won the appeal, so I got 3rd, so F the Paul Walker. Ben, sorry. But yeah, the podium felt good, but it wasn't on my card, unfortunately. The win was on the card instead. And on my second stint, I had problems with the tire pressure, so because of that, I had understeer issues. So that was the main reason why I lost a lot of time.
So just taking it a step back with regards to the race night. So in qualifying, looking a strong qualifying session, but in the end qualified in 7th place. Was that the best that you had in the tank, or was there a little bit more out there in qualifying?
There's a little light. There was definitely a bit I could have done, but I had to slid quite a lot, and the car would feel a bit twitchy and all when your mind is focusing on trying to push as hard as you can. But well, it is what it is, and usually Sundays, well, in the race, I always try to focus, keep my head down, feeling consistent, and yeah, it's the race that counts.
Oh, most definitely. And then coming into the race, we saw early on how yourself and your teammate both came charging through the field in the hunt for the lead. And we saw the switch in position between yourselves as well, particularly as you went hunting downfield. Just take us through that opening stint, because it was a very strong opening stint from yourself. Perhaps the strongest stint we've seen from anyone this season.
Yeah, I felt a bit surprised, to be honest, because I thought they were struggling with the tyres. Whereas in me and Ben's first stint, we were more actually focusing our feel. I know Ben had to do it anyway because his McLaren wasn't capable of doing the best of field management, but unfortunately for me, I had a miscalculation because I knew I could put more fuel in the McLaren, and so we did have to manage that. And I think Phil, I don't know what happened, because in the second stint he was really struggling. And I saw that he was like a minute behind us at one point, but yeah, as I say, in the first stint, we felt good and all, and no problems.
Then coming on to the second stint, we've talked about it with your teammate Ben Walker. That battle between yourselves at the bus stop chicane, was it a bit of a heart in the mouth moment, given the fact that you're both teammates, and really it should have been a 1-2 for the pair of you? It could have been both of you going off the circuit.
Oh no, it was sort of my fault, because I felt I slightly turned in, but it was only a touch, no serious damage. But I said to him, you could just go ahead and just pull away while I managed the struggles of, as I say, with the tyres and the handling of the car.
So just with regards to the strong, because we saw your pace drop off so dramatically, just take us through as to what had caused that, because we're trying to figure out for some time. Then we saw, I believe it was on about lap number 35, we saw a huge slide from yourself going through what was turns 13 and 14, where the rear of the car just seemed to over-rotate, and then bits of understeer here and there on the subsequent lap. Just take us through what had gone wrong.
Well, as I said, it was the pressures that were a little bit lower than I expected, and they just dropped about 4th lap into my second stint, and then I just sort of struggled in the rear. Yeah, it was just a moment sliding and on, just had the management. I think I just braked a bit too hard when turning in the corner in the entry, so I think that was probably just why. It's just more for myself, I sort of blame myself.
That's fair play,
Yeah.
But to be fair, whilst you were struggling, one thing you were not struggling to do, and it was very impressive, was holding off the charging Gianpietro, also Chris Zoiger, and also Atkinson trying to come through. Just take us through what it was like having to defend for the best part of what was 20 minutes.
I did my absolute hardest. I was just pouring a sweat, and I knew I had to maximize my defense as anything. So, but luckily, on my previous experience, I have managed to achieve that and practice a lot, and not the highs and lows, and I do try my best to go as close racing as I can without consequences for myself and the others. And I think there were a couple of touches there, especially in the corners. I think when I was a little bit slower than usual, I will admit that, because when I had to approach the entry the inside so that you couldn't take on the racing line.
Oh, very true. And then with regards to the instant, from your perspective, when you were looking at the instant between what was Gianpietro and Chris Zoiger, I bet you breathed a sigh of relief when you saw the two of them come together at the bus stop, giving you the space to start driving away.
I was, for the time being, for at least 3 laps, but I knew that Atkinson would come up because I knew the Bentley would be absolutely a monster in the straight line. So that was sort of my worry, but and I knew the Porsches would be right behind me because, especially in the corners, and also they're very good in the brakes, so they could brake a lot later than the Ferrari, and I think they were really trying to get through it.
Oh, most definitely. And speaking of get through, in the end, one did get through in the form of Atkinson. What happened to yourself at Uruguay and Radion? Because at one moment we cut away from yourself to look at what was happening further around the circuit, and then we looked back to see that you were essentially trundling on at low speed and recovering down the Kimmel Straight.
I went off Radion, going up the hill at Radion, and I just lost the rear and did a 360, and then I somehow avoided the barriers, which that was very lucky, but no damage or anything except the tires, which I did get a bit of flat tire there.
And then riding it home to the end, obviously you had both what was Gianpietro and also, sorry, not Gianpietro, my apologies, Chris Zoiga and also Harrikonen ahead, but they both had 15-second penalties, so I assume from that point onwards it was just managing the gap?
Yep, it was indeed.
Oh, it was a fantastically managed gap, and really, when you look back at this season, what has been your highlight of this season of racing?
I think the highlight would probably have to be Nürburgring, apart from the pit stop, obviously. I did feel that I was on the pace there, and if I didn't have the issue, I probably would have been battling for the lead. And also the highlight would probably have to be Misano, where it was my first real opportunity to get the podium. I feel like the car was strong and the setup was good, and I just felt like I could really go for it.
Oh, most definitely. Well, with that in mind and 2 podium finishes and the potential third, which wasn't to be, unfortunately, what's next for yourself in terms of, is it pastures new, coming back for another season here with Next Gen? What's the next adventure?
I think likely I will probably enter season 2 because I've got nothing to do in real life. I'm currently unemployed, so I have no job, so yeah. Hopefully I'll soon get a job as a sim driver.
Well, we definitely wish you all the best in that endeavour, and if we do see you come back for Season 2, we'd love to see more from you out of the circuit, because you have risen to the challenge, particularly in the second half of the season, to see that Ferrari come alive and the pace being unleashed. I think many in our viewership have been enjoying it, and we do have one last question from a Twitch viewer, Fujiwara So, who's asking, so can Ethan tell us, what does he see as the biggest challenge in driving the Ferrari 488 around Spa?
I think really probably just not make any mistakes, don't crash. I mean, that's probably easy as anything to say that, but I think Ferrari specifically, it can be a little bit of a challenge, consider it is strong, but it's not the top of the league, so it's not, and I always think, you know, just keep practicing constantly and manage setup, do a little tweak here and there, and see how it feels best, and I think that's really how you can accomplish.
Oh, it's fantastic stuff to see the Ferrari glide around the circuit, but once again, congratulations on the third place today. A valiant effort, and in the end it was rewarded, and also to getting the overturned podium for the Nürburgring, 2 podiums back to back, and I think that may have just been enough to creep you into the top 10 of the championship overall. But regardless of where it does or not, it's been a brilliant season for yourself in the end, and we look forward to seeing you potentially come back in Season 2 later this year.
Yep, and now I'm going to head off and I'm going to throw the champagne to Maranello.
Well, do enjoy, sir, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you, you too.
Well, you can hear that from Faulkner, very happy with the result. A phenomenal result in the end, and indeed, having also overturned via appeal the dropped podium from the Nürburgring, 2 podiums to wrap up his season, and definitely an overturning results which I think should just take him into the top 10 in the championship standings. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that does mean that we've concluded our post-race interviews. 3 podium finishers, all very happy to have taken the podium slots at Spa, and now we begin to wrap up what has been a phenomenal season of racing. So thank you very much for watching. If you do want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community, feel free to check us out at our official website, that's nextgenracing.co.uk, and also our official Facebook group, that's facebook.com groups Next Gen Racing. We'd also like to say a big thank you to our partners without whom this would not be possible in terms of organising the events and also running the stewarding. That's the SimGrid, thesimgrid.com, and Coach Dave Academy, coachdaveacademy.com. But before we completely drop the curtain down with regards to Season 1, what we should say is that whilst we are coming to the end of Season 1, we do have Season 2 on the horizon. As you can see here, the official racing is due to get underway on Tuesday the 7th of September, but we do also have the pre-season qualifier a week earlier on the 31st of August. Season 2 on the cards, 30 cars in the GT3 class, 20 cars in the GT4 class, subject to, of course, variable numbers, but it's going to be much the same format, and we would love to see you there. Whether you participated in this season or been an avid watcher, or you're brand new to the series as tonight, if you are interested, be sure to check us out on the official SimGrid Racing website, and also to look up Next Gen Racing on the official website for all the details. But that is goodbye from us, and we look forward to potentially receiving you in Season 2. We will be back come the end of August and the start of September for the opening round of that season. But until then, it is goodbye from me. I have been your host, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain in a Spit. You've been watching this on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitch, and until next time, ladies and gentlemen, stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, stay on track. Good night.